Coming up this week on the Markcast. Does someone have a cornfield somewhere outside of Las Vegas, Nevada the XFL could use? Can we get Kevin Costner on the phone, start building the field of dreams? The XFL just announced the Vegas Vipers are playing February 2023 in Las Vegas, Nevada. The only problem is they really don't know where they're playing. We discuss.
If you build it, he will come.
Okay, you must have heard that.
Sorry. Hey, come on in to dinner.
Lots of stuff to talk about on the show this week. Your friend and mine, XFL insider Mike Mitchell, returns. Best interview I've ever done with Mike. Best interview, everything you would want, over an hour and 20 minutes, talking everything from team names, logos, the XFL Vegas situation, Redbird Capital. Are we confident in them building a football league? What do we think of everything involved with the XFL 3 months from kickoff?
This is a black mark on the league, the way I see it, because I totally understood why they drifted away from New York and Tampa and LA. If you're gonna get away from the New York Guardians because you feel that, you know, it's a stadium issue, economic issue, all that, understandably so, very expensive to run the biggest of big city teams. But if you're going to get away from that, and then one of the cities you choose, you don't have a stadium for yet.
And then speaking of the XFL's lack of a venue for their Las Vegas sports franchise, Alan Snell of lvsportsbiz.com stops by. Lots of insights. Could the XFL play at Cashman Field? How much does Allegiant charge? Like, what is going on with the negotiations? Oh, Sam Boyd. No, we cannot play at Sam Boyd. Alan explains it all.
I mean, it depends on, as a fan, what kind of experience you're looking for. I mean, to me, I'd rather go to an event that is kind of packed full than being in a huge, cavernous venue where, you have 50,000, just empty seats.
And then you CFL fans, do I have a treat for you? CFL legend Matt Dunigan extended interview. Hey guys, welcome to the Markcast. Reed here. This is a really good episode today. I just want you to know I'm not going to do too much prefacey stuff. I know I always say that, but want you to get to Mike Mitchell's interview here as soon as possible. Thank you all so much for stopping by. Best interview I've ever done with Mike. I think I've probably said that before on here, but I truly mean that. And it's too much to even time code. I was going through it. Okay, we're going to talk about this and that. So in-depth, so overarching, just with everything, talking the team name reveals this week and the logos, Mike's thoughts about how long has the XFL known about these team names? Why is Anthony Beck saying that he found out about the Battlehawks? He got his merchandise and all that back in February. We talk about the draft, previewing the draft, what's going on with that. Everything you would ever want with Mike, Redbird, their comments, is it hubris kind of leading to them being so stubborn going into Vegas? Mike even said some stuff that he said, quote, I know I'm going to get in trouble for this. So hope you enjoy that. A really, really long interview with Mike. I encourage you to listen to all of it. Like I said, it was going to time code. It's worth your time. I promise you, hour and 20 minutes. Really hope you guys enjoy that, talking everything XFL on a really busy week. If you like the content we're doing on here, please like and subscribe. New episodes every week. We've had a lot of subscribers come on just because of the team name reveals and the logos and all that. Thank you guys so much. Also, Alan Snell coming on. Alan was the one that wrote the big article this week about the XFL's lack of a venue in Vegas, them looking at Cashman Field, other alternatives in the Las Vegas market. I always like to try to do that on the podcast, right? We have newsmakers, reporters, other media types, uncovering stories. I like to reach out to them, get them to come on here and talk. Really appreciate a really long interview with Alan talking about the Las Vegas sports market. Like, is he excited for the XFL? Does he think that that's a good fit? The XFL coming into Vegas. Alan very much viewing the XFL as a minor football league, which I know will rub some people the wrong way, but it's valid, right? These are new markets, new reporters, new journalists that are covering this. Like, what are what is their perception of everything? I think that's important to keep in mind. We live this every day. It's really important to get someone, I think like Alan, I think it was a really good kind of, total outsider, right? Like Alan has probably heard of the XFL, 2 weeks ago. Here we're coming in, like, what's going on? Really valuable with that. And then Matt Dunigan, truly just a gem of a human being. I have been emailing Matt Dunigan for over a year, trying to get him to come on. So excited. The big CFL season recap. We kind of the retrospective storylines of the season. What did Matt think? I know Matt does the CFL on TSN broadcast, but I think it's cool to get Matt in a longer form, really fleshing out his thoughts and storylines and stuff as he sees it. Really appreciate that. And then obviously looking forward to the playoffs this weekend. I will be at BC Place on Sunday with Dorothy. If you are in the area, come by, say hi. We will be there Saturday afternoon into the evening through Sunday. Big weekend of CFL games. Hope you guys enjoy. The last thing today, you see me waving this around. We have our Spring League football. This is signed by, as I break my microphone, signed by a friend of the show, Brian Scott of the USFL and the Spring League. If you are just hopping on to the podcast, we are giving this bad boy away when we hit 2,500 subscribers. So like and subscribe. A lot of work goes into this. I was up at 3:45 in the morning on Monday to do the XFL logo reveal. So please, like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. Really appreciate that. Stick by at the end of the show. We have another giveaway. We're giving away the USFL. We have the Case Cookis jersey, but the Doug Flutie jersey was not claimed. So the winner last week, I announced on the podcast, never heard back, wasn't claimed. So we are going to be giving that away again this week. Stick by at the end of the show. I have them here. I probably should have had them ready, but the Case Cookis and the Doug Flutie jersey. The Doug Flutie one could be yours, and I'll announce who gets the Case. Can't even talk right now. Who gets the Case Cookis jersey at the end of the show? Like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Well, as I said on Twitter, as always, when, breaking XFL news, big XFL news hits, I like to, always bring back on XFL insider Mike Mitchell. Mike Mitchell, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Reed. Thank you very much for having me on.
I like it. I like kind of, and obviously you live your own life and I live my own life, but I like that we can come together for this. I know we didn't rehearse this. I know we did a couple, shots on the podcast a couple months ago. I did bring a beer because we are toasting the death of the Seattle Dragons and the New York Guardians. So ching ching. And
ching.
Mike, we have a lot of stuff to get into today.
Sure.
So basic number one question, we saw the logo reveals at 5 a.m. Pacific on Monday. We saw the logo reveals. That's when my week started. It was 3:45 a.m. Monday. How'd they do?
I like them. Obviously you're always going to have your qualms about certain things, colors, logos, all that. And then this is kind of an odd situation because it's a new league, new ownership, but it's not really a new league. They inherited brands from before. So we've got 7 of the names back, although one of them is changed to the Sea Dragons, obviously. And then, the Renegades are now Arlington. And the only new brand we have technically is the San Antonio Brahmas, which surprisingly enough, I like now. So it's growing on me. And I think that's what happens with a lot of these things. I think they grow on you over time. It's kind of incomplete right now because we don't have the jerseys and the uniforms. Like the Brahmas logo looks cool, but what if the uniforms and all that is a disaster? Hopefully it's not. Hopefully it looks great. I like the logo. I like the concept too. It's kind of an old tired concept to have bulls or horns in Texas, but this is kind of a different spin on it. And I think it has the potential to have that same Battlehawks appeal. When the Battlehawks were introduced 3 years ago this time, a little bit earlier than this time, but 3 years ago, nonetheless, I scoffed at it. Back in 2000, when I was writing about the XFL, the original XFL, and, that league got trashed because of all the silly names. It was a sign of the times and all that. So anyway, fast forward, when the XFL was returning, my biggest worry was please I know, even if some of them are boring, just have traditional names, no maniacs, no enforcers, no hitmen, none of that. And then when the first name was revealed to be Battlehawks, I was like, oh no, Vince McMahon strikes. So that was his choice too. So, I felt like, oh, this is pretty silly. What the hell is a Battlehawk? But, the logo is glorious. I'm glad that's back. The sword, the wings, everything about it is cool. Cause the law. And so, So it's awesome to see it back. And that's, I think, the appeal the Brahmas are going to have. Kind of crazy that it's named after The Rock's former wrestling nickname and all that. But I think it'll grow on people. San Antonio was an awesome choice. We can debate if they're making good choices in other areas, but I think picking that market was smart. And it's so far so good. You know, they're gonna have a cool coach in Hines Ward. I like their color scheme and all that. I think it's gonna be fun. I think the Alamo Dome, they'll embrace it, that market. San Antonio's an awesome market. So they got a stadium. So I mean, they're set up on that front. So they got, you know, so I think I was happy overall looking at it. It's finally, you know, we got to the point where we're set now. So now it's baby steps, but we got all the teams, the brands, the logos, and now we're 3 months away, a little over 3 months away from kickoff. So I'm looking forward to that. This is fun.
Yeah, and so in kind of order of events, I do want to talk a little bit about this. I don't want the logos to be like the entire, you know, and I think you would agree there's a lot more stuff this week in terms of Vegas and the stadium. I want to talk about timeline with Anthony Becht and getting that box and maybe when did we know. So I want to get on that, but I do want to stop down on the logos for a minute just because obviously that's the biggest news. Everything else might be more important right now, but we'll get to all that today. I mean, lots to talk through. I like the Brahmas, the black and yellow, Hines Ward, like he opened the box, really excited. You know, I think that's like a really easy way to like get him jazzed up. Like, oh, hey, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, right? But like, oh, hey, it feels like maybe they picked that one for me a little bit, right? Because you could, nothing about the Brahmas, you know, screams black and yellow, right? You could have had it be, you know, red and black or whatever.
Sure.
So I like that and feeling excited about that. It does feel like Anthony Becht is very excited to be able to talk about Battlehawks. I thought it was weird that Danny Garcia in the intro video said, cause the law, you know, caca. But then very much in all the branding for the team name, it's like, this is based off planes and helicopters and not a bird.
Yeah. You know, I'm not unsure. A lot of this feels incomplete, right? Like, you know, we have secondary logos. We kind of don't. There are other secondary logos out there today at xflnewshub.com. Mark Perry put out an article about that. I'm sure it's being covered at other outlets as well, XFL related sites. So it does feel a little bit incomplete. Like maybe the branding's a little bit off or they're not hitting on every single aspect of it. You know, you got 7 brands returning. So I didn't hear too much, you know, with The Rock and Danny. I didn't hear too many, you know, different things with their little sizzle reels for each city, for each team name, logo. So, yeah, they could have probably focused on the bird aspect a little bit more with the Battlehawks. But, you know, that's such a glorious logo. Like, it's so awesome that they're back. There was never any doubt in my mind. The moment they purchased the league in 2020, that was one of the reasons they purchased it. Like, if you're looking at the XFL property in 2020 and you're listening to top 5 things about the league, it wouldn't take you very long to get to the St. Louis Battlehawks. Is like why we should buy this league. Here's an example of how well received it was, how popular it was. And so it would have been foolhardy. They would have been dead on arrival if they came back as the St. Louis Scooters or something like that. So it would have been the end of it. So they could have just folded up the shop right then and there. So, yeah, they're missing a few things. There's some stuff that's been incomplete this entire runway. But, you know, we've reached this point. So I'm thankful that that Redbird Capital Partners, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Danny Garcia, that they're moving forward with this. And as a huge fan of football, as an advocate for alternative pro football league, spring pro football, I'm happy that they're giving this thing a go. The odds are heavily against them, but I think it's awesome for the landscape. And as somebody who's a diehard true football fan, I'm glad that they're giving this a shot. I can question a lot of the moves. And, you know, we could rightfully so. There's a lot of stuff you can be cynical about and critical about. But I'm glad that they exist and that we're headed towards kickoff. It should be fun.
A lot was made, you know, supposed to come out, town halls, whatever, Hurricane Ian, you know, and now we're doing Black Adam. We need all that stuff. To have The Rock not even involved in anything Monday, right? To have it be Laura from ESPN, you know, we're doing the videos on there. Thoughts on that? And were you overwhelmed, underwhelmed? Were you whelmed versus how they did it in 2020? Very similar delivery, but like so much has been made. Like we can't talk about anything right now. The Rock is doing Black Adam, and then we had the most we got from The Rock was a tweet where he tagged the wrong league and then deleted it, and then or not the wrong league, but tagged the wrong account. Deleted it, take the right one, and then retweeted the handles on Monday. I mean, that was really all we saw from The Rock. So curious your thoughts on kind of how they unveiled everything.
Yeah, Xavier F. LePage is at XFL on Twitter if you want to follow him. I think he has about 30 followers. So anyway, he accidentally got tagged. That's happened a lot. A lot of XFL personnel have done that, have tagged him. Even some XFL personnel members have had that in their bio at XFL. And it's just funny, it links up to that particular gentleman. I think people expected different things. I mean, they teased it briefly, obviously, by showing little bits and pieces. That was a pretty quick reveal, the next day or whatever. So, you can argue about how this was rolled out, all that. Laura Rutledge did a very good job. It was a nice video. The videos were nice. And they're doing a good job, the league, in terms of getting together with fans at their, whatever they're calling them, fan activation events and all that. I suppose you can nitpick it here and there, how it was done. I think a lot of people are expecting Rock to be front and center, maybe a little bit more. I think we will get that. So as we're going forward, maybe they expected it for the team logo reveals. I don't know how much The Rock could have done. I mean, he's definitely doing the voiceovers for some of the teams and all that. Maybe he could have gone on a particular show, the Manning cast or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I expected maybe a little bit more, but I didn't expect anything that was grandiose in nature.
It felt odd. Brandon was on, right? XFL News said as well. Brandon was so nice to hop. I mean that like so nice to hop on at whatever time it was, because for him as well. Because I think he's Mountain Time, but it felt odd that we did the teases from 20, and I don't want to be negative Nancy, but I do just want to voice my opinion on this before we move on. That we did the teases from 2020. It's kind of like what they did in 2020, right? Like, hey, they did it then. Let's do it again. It was the next day. Halloween, 5 a.m. The videos felt, here we got a lot of Choctaw Stadium stuff we've shot. Here's a couple snippets of some, stock footage that we've licensed. And we got Danny and The Rock here. Okay, we got to get this out. And I'm like, we'll talk about the Beck timeline. I just felt like, we had so much time, we just kind of redid what they did in 2020. Is that what people want? And then obviously with the moving of the couple of the franchises, but it just felt like all this time, and that was what we got. Like we didn't get, we've had 26 months and we just got the video on the website. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I was expecting fireworks, but it just was interesting that's what, in a league where it's like, we are going to make our own thing, be damned. But hey, this is what they did before. Like, let's just do it again.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if I expected more, to be honest with you, Reed, but I hear what you're saying. I get what you're saying. There was such a delay in everything, a slow rollout with all this stuff. And I like, for example, in April, I told the world of cities, I wrote about it, and then we got it on July 24th. And so we've known about the names. Why? Because the league leaked it on their own website. It wasn't a broken news story by somebody who can pat themselves on the back and say, look at this story, because those individuals who said, I think this is speculation and we're kind of hearing this too. No, you saw that the league accidentally put the names on the site and then you took a picture of it and put it on your site. That's not breaking news or sourcing or any of that. So anyhow, but the league, it hasn't been pretty. The XFL logo that they changed to, which is ironically enough close to the colors of the Guardians, the brand league logo, that kind of leaked early. And then, and then of course the names leaked early. And so there's been information out there about their coaches, people have known for a long time. So they slow played a lot of this stuff. And then I don't have a major issue with how they presented the logos and the names. I thought it was fine. But, could they have built it up more anticipation for it? The one thing I'll give them credit for is they kind of teased themselves, joked about all the fans that were complaining, where are the names, all that. So that was kind of cute and cool to do that, because that's legit. A lot of people, they want to know the names and all that. So when am I going to get them, Dwayne? I'm one of the quote tweets or something was like, my social security's kicking in soon, all that, talking about how they're aging so much. They've been waiting so long. So at least that part of it was cool. I'm just glad they're here. I knew that eventually they're going to get here. These teams are not going to go on the field naked. They're not going to have no names, so they're going to have players, all these things that a lot of people have been griping about. And I get it, because you make mention of it, and I've seen it mentioned other places as well, the 26 months, 27 months. Is that accurate? Yeah, kind of technically. Is that completely fair? Not really. They inherited the league from, right in the midst of a pandemic. They weren't going to come back immediately there. There was a lot of stuff that needed to be taken care of before they even got that. They got sidetracked. You want to blame them too for that, by the whole CFL business. So that was also like a weird hurdle in there. So there, the funny thing is, here we are 2 years later. And, a lot of the teams are the same. Obviously they made some tweaks. You could question whether or not they should have done that. But there wasn't that much for them to change. I think from day one, they knew the Battlehawks would be back. I think from day one, they knew the DC Defenders would be back. They wanted to be back in Seattle. They changed that up a little bit there, but I thought that they were going to head there all along. The ones we thought about are the ones we talked about in 2020. Would the Wildcats be back? Would New York be back? And so would Tampa be back? And they're not. So, for various reasons, stuff I've written about and all that. But here we are. So, yes, Reed, I totally get anybody. The loyalists who've been following this league waiting for 2 years have been extremely patient. And this hasn't been the prettiest of rollouts and presentations. I'll say that much.
Low key, my theory, and I think this was Monday in my delirium after being up. I think I was getting ready to go to bed that night. The whole CFL talks, because remember, they came out, they bought the league, we're doing it, whatever, and then it was like, we're coming back, and then we're pushing it the next year, and then they push it back again, all that, because it was, it was going to be 2022 to 2023. I think that the CFL talks, and they've had interviews with Randy. I've had Randy on the show. I think it was Dolly up in Vancouver. He said the merger talks lasted 5 minutes, or the 4 downs. Right? It was more about business talks. We milked months and months and months out of it. I think it was 4 months the talks went on. I so think that was used to buy them. Then we're going to push back, because I think if you look at the timeline of everything, even where we're at right now, I mean, we're still hiring VP ticket people in Orlando, ticket experience, right? How can we get that? We don't have the Vegas Stadium that we're going to talk about. I think back in June of last year, and I think they got, whatever that was, I think they're like, holy shit, we gotta, we're kicking the can again. I'm curious, how much of all that played into, we really need more time, because there is absolutely no way, CFL talks or not, I think that they were going to be ready to go last February. Yeah.
There was so much that went down. I think I was on your show. I don't know how many appearances ago, but I talked about how there was a period there where there was talk and consideration about whether or not this would move forward or not. So, and then, the CFL stuff would have been very complicated. Yes. All along, I was telling people, slow up a little bit, take it easy a little bit, and turn all of a sudden assuming 4 downs, this and that. Although a lot of that stuff was discussed, but they did want to do some type of merger, joint business, all under one umbrella kind of thing. And then there was a lot of pushback and fighting. And look, the CFL owners themselves, they barely get along. So they're always bickering and fighting with each other. They can't agree on anything. So yeah, let alone agreeing with an entirely different entity from south of the border. So you knew that was going to be problematic to begin with. So they, and the CFL has their own issues. I love the league to death. Can't wait for the playoffs this weekend, all that. But the reason why I'm bringing that up too is because, we saw some CFL issues this week too. This league stuff is not easy. Putting honestly, you can talk a big game and all that. It is very difficult. That's why, to Fox and USFL's credit, they simplified everything for themselves. Hey, we only have one location. We don't have to go crazy hiring a ton of people. We'll just play our games in one place. We're good. That made it easier, because if they had to launch finding stadiums and venues and promotions and marketing and presidents and team employees left and right, that you get hiccups. like every league in the history of leagues has had issues in their early going. And yes, this XFL is returning. It's a reboot. And yes, there are a lot of employees from the 2020, the Janet Dukes of the world, the Russ Gilios, the Doug Whaleys, but a lot of these people are new in their position. And there's a lot of key figures. The new people in the XFL don't like me saying this, but okay. But there's a lot of key figures that were part of the XFL 2-3 years ago that were significant contributors and that did an excellent job, hired rock stars that are still within the XFL right now. So people don't like me saying that because they think they have allegiance. I have allegiances. I don't have allegiances. These people are not my friends. I'm judging the work performance, job performance like I would when I'm watching a sports game. So, they don't like me saying the name, but Jeffrey Pollock's, all these Sam Schwartzstein's, Eric Galco's, these people did a tremendous job. And I have no doubt that the people that are currently in the league can do a great job. And there are several people that I have a lot of respect for: Russ Gilio, Doug Whaley, Mark Ross, all of them. So Janet Duke, I dealt with her covering the New York Guardians. So my overall point here is that, when you're putting a league together, this is kind of a new league. They've got the XFL name. They're going to have hiccups along the way. There's going to be issues. They're still trying to hire people. This stuff is not easy. It took them time. They weren't going to come back in 2021 because of the pandemic. You could argue we're past the pandemic. We're not really, but we're past it in terms of what it was, in terms of no fans coming to the games, no attendance available, all that. They were never going to launch a league without that. It's the reason why Vince McMahon folded up shop. It's because he wasn't going to have fans anymore. So there you go. There goes all the profits. So anyhow, but that's kind of where we stand now. So there's going to be hiccups along the way. I expect it. The USFL had hiccups. It wasn't a perfect operation. The XFL is not going to be perfect either. And they're still kind of, they're still, they're tripping on themselves a little bit as they go along here, and they have. And so I can kind of accept that because I've seen that. Look, the NFL, as big of a monster as it is now, in the early going, they had massive issues. So there were a lot of problems with them. It took them a long time before they came to this. They had empty stadiums and struggles. The Super Bowl almost died. It was poorly attended the first 2 years. So they were thinking about scrapping it. They thought it was ridiculous to have the NFC, at the time the NFL, play with this American Football Conference because it's an inferior conference. Nobody cares about the Super Bowl. Let's scrap this whole thing. So anyway, those early years and putting together a pro football league, this is hard, and it's going to take a lot of finances, and there's going to be bumps in the road, and we've already seen them.
Yeah. And just to, I get a lot of interesting enough in now, I don't get as much like Reed's a hater because I think that people agree a lot with what I'm saying in terms of like XFL stuff. I got a lot of during the last year with USFL. I know you did, and we all, and Mike's hating and Reed's hating. We're hating all this stuff, right? And now I'm saying stuff, and people are like, "Hey, I kind of agree with Reed." Like, I'm not getting as much of that, like, people spamming my stuff. But the reason why I bring it up is just today, and I just tweeted before we got on here, Pat McAfee had his big this week, and the NFL was like, you can't use our logos anymore, and you can't use all that stuff. And even though Pat pays all this money, and Pat took a stand, said, this is what's wrong. This is why it's wrong. Obviously, Pat is a bajillion times bigger than anybody that I deal with on a daily basis. But you need to like voice when you see things that are wrong and work towards improving them in ways that are tangible and doing that. And so that's why we talk about this. And you, I think, are great and valuable in having these conversations. And that's like, I was so proud of Pat, and not that Pat gives an F about me.
Yeah, sure.
But you have someone here that you have like, this is why, and this is the biggest league in the world. It just got egg all over its face because they tried to overstep and they learned that they can't do that. So this is why when I criticize the XFL and whatever, and do they care? Or do we have enough time? Does USL? It's because we want things to be better. And I just want to make sure I say that.
Good for Pat. Pat is gutsy. Pat will, this is a PG show. So some of the stuff I can't say about him, but he's definitely, he's definitely a tough guy, and he's not scared to speak his mind. And, a lot of people would not take the stance that he took. They would just like bend down and just accept it. It's funny because you and I are fanboys, and I don't always agree with your opinions. I'm a fanboy for this concept, right? So I'm a fanboy for football. I've been an advocate for pro football, college football my whole life. And I've been an advocate for pro football leagues like the XFL, USFL, etc. my whole life. So okay, in that respect, I'm definitely a fanboy. No question about it. But, it's just funny. Like sometimes one side will accuse you of being an XFL fanboy. And at the same time, little do they know that the very league that they're accusing me of being a fanboy of is, upset with me or down my throat because maybe some of my opinions have been pretty harsh, maybe can be considered unfair, or what have you. I was this way with the XFL in 2022. So I'm optimistic. I know we're in the season now where we're supposed to be thankful, right? So I'm thankful that these leagues are in existence. I've waited for this practically my whole life for this. So I think this is really awesome that we're going to have multiple pro football leagues. This is great for players, and I just want more football. Give me more football. I want it. So I'm really excited about this. So some of this stuff, maybe it's overblown. We'll get into some of the Vegas stuff and all that, whether or not it's the end of the world or not. I don't think it is, but it is, a little bit of black mark. So we'll get into that. But yeah, so at the end of the day, we're advocates for this. We're rooting for this to succeed. We want to succeed. And it's not why that people would think so. It's not, okay, I get paid professionally to write about pro football, and I'm doing that for about the CFL and the XFL and the Jets and all that. But I'm not in this to get rich. I'm in this because I'm profit or become some kind of celebrity or star or mainstream guy. I'm just doing this because I have a genuine passion, and I'm an advocate for this. I have been since I was a USFL fan since I was a kid. So that's just the way it goes.
I will tell you, if I build what I work very hard to run my business, and if I build what I did building this show every week, and I will tell you, I haven't even talked about this, but I've switched the music on the videos, right? It comes out that my former co-host maybe didn't have everything licensed correctly, right? So we're moving forward. I've had to pay an astronomical amount of money this week. It's fine, right? I mean, thankfully, I'm in the position I never want to be accused of and I don't want to talk, make a big stink about it on Twitter. But I never want to be accused oh, you're doing this for the money or for the fan. I paid an astronomical amount of money this week to settle all of this so I don't get sued. So I just, let's just be this is for the love of football. And this is for us, doing that. We really care about this, and the players that I know that you are friends with and have a lot of people that trust your opinion on Mike, what should I do? I mean, these are genuine people and genuine lives, and I have but a fraction of that, right? They ask me, but these are people that really care, and I think that is, should never be forgotten. That is why we do this, and it's for that greater good of all of this.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, there's a lot of coaches that are involved in the XFL and in the USFL that I've been in touch with for quite some time now, and it even helps some of them get connected into the league. And it's the same thing going on with players right now, helping players get connected into USFL teams and get in contact, because I've been fortunate covering these leagues to develop connections and to have contact. So I've been this isn't about me at the end of the day. Like I said, this for me is football heaven. Right now, I'm wrapped up in the CFL. I can't wait for the CFL playoffs. I'm wrapped up in the NFL. Love it. Right now I'm thinking about whether or not I should have picked up Devin Duvernay or not for my fantasy team. So I'm all wrapped up in that. And I'm in heaven because the XFL and the USFL are going to be, how long this is going to last, who knows? But this is so great. As a football fan, this is so great. Anybody who's snobbish about it or doesn't care about these leagues so much, I don't really care about that, because I'm getting what I want. So that's just kind of the way it goes. So yeah, this is a great period. Who knows in 2 years from now if we have both these leagues still around? I hope so.
Before we move off the logos and stuff, I want to talk the Beck stuff here. I'll give you a minute. Anything else you want to talk about? Rebrands, RIP the Guardians, RIP, any of that? I was surprised. Dorothy hates the Sea Dragons. My wife hates the Sea Dragons. I texted her. I'm like, hey, here's the logos. And she was like, oh, I hate that. And I was very surprised. I mean, I get the S and all that. But any other thoughts about logos, branding? And obviously, we'll get uniforms and all that stuff. But the logos and names.
The Sea Dragons logo looks like something my niece would do. It's kind of cute, but it's not an intimidating dragon. It kind of looks like a little kid's drawing. So yeah, so look at that guy. So that's kind of the story there. So I can see why she maybe wasn't a big fan of it. It looks like a sea worm or a seahorse. I don't know if that's what they were going for. Maybe the uniforms will save it, and I'll see the uniforms and I'll go, you know what? I like the colors. Now, now you and I may have a different opinion on this. This is all subjective. And I don't even know if this is their secondary logo or not, but the initial secondary logo of the Trident to me is badass. So that's just a personal preference thing. I like it a lot. So, and I've seen people comment favorably about that, you know, as they've seen it on social media and stuff like that. So, and then I've had people reach out to me in the league who like it as well. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, final thoughts on the logos. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. The names are fine. I like them. They were part of the league 2 years ago. I wrote an entire article ranking, so I kind of ranking the logos and the team names and everything else at xflnewshub.com if anybody wants to check that out. And so my opinions are kind of mixed in there. The big topic for me is, you know, the Orlando Guardians, and I wrote about the Guardians and the Rock's comments about not coming back to New York. And you know, and why they didn't, and you know, maybe, you know, pushing that can down the road for the future. So you know, that we knew that for a long time New York wasn't coming back. So and that's just the way it goes. And I reported that myself. So it's still a bitter pill to swallow. So I'm representing them here because they're extinct. The goodbye New York Guardians, you're no longer on duty. So we won't see him back. So maybe they're the New York Nighthawks or the New York Gothams in 2026 or something. Who knows? But yeah, that was, so, you know, personal feelings aside, just stepping back, you know, my personal feelings of being a born and raised New Yorker and wanting to see the Guardians brand back. I like the overall package. It's a little bit incomplete because I haven't seen the full uniforms and the helmets and all that, but I like it. I have no issues with it. You can nitpick here and there, and I know it's subjective.
I did like the Rock's comments about, well, you know, we really wanted to go back to New York. We just couldn't find any place to play there. It's like, didn't stop you in Las Vegas. Like, we'll get to that, but did stop. Last thing on the logos. What is the deal with the secondary logos? Because here we are, you know, Brandon and I are doing our live stream. We're reading from ESPN. I mean, this is the ESPN, you know, TV partner of XFL, and here's the logos / here's the other logos. Like Arlington had, I don't like the Arlington one. Just it doesn't fit the text. That none of the other logos are built off of text, right? Like it's just very weird. Like every other one is like a character. I mean, DC. Okay, my argument's falling apart, but I don't like that. But anyway, but then, you know, you have like, hey, it looks like they have the old Renegade, you know, Vegas has the LV, like you said, Seattle has the Trident one. We have all these alternate logos, and then we get off and I'm doing other stuff. We talked all about it on the live stream. And like 4 hours later, I get a text from Brandon like, hey, did you see the logo? Like ESPN, they're off the website. Like what is going on with that?
Who knows? They're probably still working on things in terms of the logos and all that. They're probably still, there's no doubt, right? So this happens with and we saw this with the XFL back in 2018, 2019. They had several different names for each city. They had several different logos for each city, color combinations, fonts, lettering, whatever. And I'm sure that on the cutting room floor, there are several secondary logos and different choices. Be fun to see them. I know way back when we had with Seattle, with the XFL, we had the Surge, and I'm forgetting some of the other names right now, but there was like 5 different names they trademarked. And so I'm sure that maybe that's why they pulled it, because they're unsure of it. They still want to, you know, do a few things. So who knows? We'll see what happens. We'll see what they eventually roll out. They can put out 5 different logos if they want for each individual team. If they have them, why not? If you want to sell different merch or hats, go for it. You know, it's not a big deal, really.
It's fine. It's just weird that it was on ESPN, and you know, and like especially to have like the Arlington logo still there, exactly, you know, the Renegades one still the same. Like I think that was the weirdest thing too. Like the Vegas one, kind of a throwback to the Las Vegas Outlaws, and I didn't love the Trident, but like whatever, it just felt weird that like we would post like that's pushed out on ESPN. Like that, how many eyeballs did that have to go through? Maybe.
There was also, remember, there was also additional information like the league. I reached out to the league and they wouldn't confirm it. And ESPN and even Kevin Seifert, who's tremendous, been on your show, tremendous writer, great guy. He was unaware of the ESPN and the information that was in the ESPN block of information on the day they revealed the team names and logos, that the draft details were out there, that there would be 16 assigned quarterbacks, that the draft would be taking place in Vegas, 2-day period, all that. And he was unaware that I was there. So I'm not sure who's working at ESPN that got early logos or early information on the draft. I mean, I also reported the Vegas thing for the draft too, but that's not been 100%. I've written about that for a while too. But the league makes something official, even though everybody knew that the team coaches long before they announced it, even though everybody knew the team cities in April and they didn't announce it till July 24th. And we all knew the leak logos. At some point, maybe these draft details will become official. I'm assuming that sooner or later, maybe this coming week, we're going to hear something perhaps through Neil Stratton and everything in terms of the specific draft details, how they're going to sign people, how many rounds it's going to be, how extended it's going to be, what their supplemental draft will entail post December 31st before camps get started. So there's some interest there. So there's a lot of stuff right now that's like, until the league confirms. That was strange that their logos came out there on an ESPN article, which is their partner. But yeah, sometimes the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing.
I've heard that a little bit. I don't get as many DMs as I'm sure you do, but I have heard a little bit. I'm like, we don't really know what's going on here. Yeah, draft have to be next week. I mean, I would. Can media go? Should I buy a plane ticket? Can I be there? I would like to know. I mean, I think it would be. I mean, I'm going to Grey Cup on the 17th, so I mean, I'm happy to go down at least for the first night of it. But it would be cool to.
It's funny. The last XFL wasn't going to do anything for the draft besides just a quick announcement of who got drafted where. And then, Sam Schwartzstein and those guys, like, kind of convinced the league to do something, so they did a little bit of a conference call kind of thing. And it was very generic and all that, but it was something, right? But when you're announcing a location, they haven't announced it yet. So who knows, right? But if you're announcing a specific location in Nevada, then you would figure there's going to be some pomp and circumstance involved, something, The AAF, I liked it when they had their little, it wasn't the greatest in the world, Marshawn Lynch cursing on air and all that, Josh Johnson, the first overall pick, but I liked their little QB draft with all these former NFL players commenting on the players they saw that they were being selected and all that, players in person waiting to be selected. So hopefully they do something. Do I think they're going to do 80 rounds? Or 70 rounds or 50 rounds or whatever the case may be? I don't think so. I mean, as much of a football nerd as I am, and I will watch that. If it's like a 30 straight hour draft, I'll watch it like a maniac. That doesn't seem plausible to me. So we'll see, but that's coming. I mean, they have no choice here. I mean, if they want to push, I know we've said that for a lot of things with the XFL. They want to push the draft in December. Would it shock me? No. But right now, what we're hearing is the 16th and the 17th. So you have to announce the details, and there's something coming up with Neil Stratton and all that. He's made mention that he's going to have Doug Whaley on and the XFL's personnel people. So we'll get full details out there. They'll be in the ether and we'll know more about it. I'm curious, like everyone else is curious, but I think like part of me during this whole process has been looking towards January because of two leagues that have players with expiring contracts, practice squad players in the NFL whose contracts expire when the NFL season ends. And then there's that, elephant in the room, the USFL players whose contracts expire on December 31st, who may decide to journey into the XFL. So this is fun. The football stuff, the player stuff. I think people will get even more into the league once they see the players that are attached to the teams. And so we're getting there, 3 months away from them taking the field.
Yes. And we've talked about how the supplemental draft in January, whenever that is, might be more enticing than the draft in November, just because, like you said, if there's USFL guys that want to jump ship, whatever. It is funny. Today, I got the email reminder because I'm able to select tickets Friday. As you listen to this, I'm able to select our season tickets for the XFL stuff, which I thought was great also in the email because they said, when I got the thing last week, they said, because of the fact that you were a 2020 person and because of your early deposit for 2022 or 2023, we're selecting you. You're here. This is your time. Because I'm 10 a.m. I don't know. I've heard some people are next week. Like I've heard. Anyway, I think that's good to acknowledge some of the 2020. But I was texting one of my season ticket holders, Michael, and I'm like, hey, don't forget, like, be ready. I'll text you tomorrow. We're going to be doing the thing. He's like, yeah, I'm really having a hard time getting excited about this right now. And it was like you said, we don't know any of the players. I mean, we got the logos, what are the uniforms? So, I mean, we're building towards it. Like, just having the team names out there doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to be flocking to the season ticket deposit line.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that are unaware of this league. It's not on the
A
radar.
lot.
Like, I'm an XFL guy, I'm a USFL guy, I'm a spring football guy, have been my whole life, but I've been distracted during this period. I've like wrapped up in the Jets. I'm wrapped up in the NFL. I'm wrapped up in the CFL. I can't wait to the Argos East final. Probably going to end up being Hamilton, knocking them out again. Hopefully not. But anyhow. But, these are all, so people in these markets, there's a lot of people out there that had no clue. Like, you saw that tweet from that New York Guardians fan that, basically said to Rock, "I'm so disappointed. It was the greatest brand you guys had. It was so cool. I loved it. I'm so disappointed. Devastated," he said. Eric Francisco was the user's name. Devastated that the New York Guardians are not coming back. But we already knew that New York Guardians weren't coming back for the longest time. They already announced the 8 cities back in July. So if, it wasn't until these team names came out and a little bit of ESPN stuff through their social media and their media and all that now people are like, really? The New York Guardians are not coming back? There's a whole mess of people that have no clue that the XFL is going to even be launching in February 18th. So there's, and the people within the very markets where these teams are going to be playing. So there's a lot of work to do to create awareness and to actually, they have us, right? They have the hardcores that have been crazy patient, waiting for all this time because, all the COVID madness and everything else. So, but, getting more visible and getting attention, it's hard enough to get attention during the NFL season. Really is. Everyone's wrapped up in the National Football League. So I understand. I get it. So am I. So we'll see how that all goes. But yeah, it's an interesting endeavor and challenge for the XFL, trying to get attention and trying to get notice.
The 100 people that were at the San Antonio Brahmas event with Heinz Ward would like you to know that they're very much aware that it's very much.
That's awesome.
I'm not. Max and I have to go back and forth. I'm like, I don't know how many people are going to be. So they're 100 strong, San Antonio. I will say, Alan Snell, the interview that's coming up after this, the Las Vegas, talking about the stadium. The article I sent you today, not from Alan, from a very negative writer in Vegas, talking about the team. They don't really care. That's the thing. Like, you think, hey, just The Rock, and they're going to come in and BDE, and hey, we're here and we're watching, and like, you're in Vegas. It's like, we got a lot of other crap going on here. Like, okay, like that's cool. Like, we have, like Alan said, that we got the Raiders, we got the Aces now, we've got indoor football, we've got lacrosse, we've got every performer in the history of mankind, we've got UFC. Like, okay, like it's fine. Like, I'm glad you're here, but there's only so many hours to cover all this stuff. So. Yeah,
and the Vegas subject, oh boy, we could go on for hours.
So pause. We'll do Vegas. Before we get off this, I do want to know. So a lot of chatter this week. Anthony Becht had his town hall. He said during the town hall, I think because Pudge tweeted about it. Pudge Robertson, I think is his name, but he was there. One of the media reported it. Anthony Becht said, like, yeah, I got my merchandise back in February. Right, like I got my Battlehawk stuff, and you remember the coaches weren't announced till April, and then the cities weren't announced until July. Everyone knows the timeline. So, like, what is your thought process of that? Because I screamed out, and I'm like, they've known about these since February. So, can you please give for anyone, because there was a lot of chatter this week, like, what is the deal with Anthony Becht getting that box?
Wow. There's so many layers to this, right? So, like, the Battlehawks, I wish it was a simple answer. The Battlehawks were a guaranteed brand that was returning. And Anthony, I don't have the official date on me when he was officially announced as one of the coaches.
Well, they were all in April. I mean, it was that week before the USFL.
I released the coaches, so then, yes. The Anthony Becks and all these guys. And and obviously there was time before that where they knew that they were going to be hired. It was just a matter of when the league wanted to announce them all at once. So the different coaches got hired at different times. The league wanted to announce all their team names and logos at once. So maybe there was a lot of tweaking along the way until we got to this point. They've known for a long time what the names are going to be. They've known, but we've known for a long time, because a lot of these names we figured DC, they're coming back in DC. The Defenders are coming back. They're coming back in St. Louis. The Battlehawks are coming back. They're coming back in Seattle. The Dragons are coming back, even if they're called the Sea Dragons. So they're coming back in Arlington. We know the Renegades are coming back. They're not coming back because the Arlington Armadillos. So that's kind of the story there. So yeah, there are some coaches and that are already, and you know, we all saw the Battlehawks logos 2 years ago. So for Anthony Beck to see it in February, yeah, okay. It's the same logo. So is that the case for all of them? Have all the coaches known what their teams are going to be named for months on end since the moment they got hired? Did they have input in their colors and logos? Sure, they did. They've been tweaking them all along the way till they got to the finish line. So, yeah, so I'm sure. You know, the Rod Woodson, we know he went on Pat McAfee and he said he already knew the name and, you know, and all that. And we had to wait a while until that eventually got revealed. So I can understand why some XFL fans are upset because they're like, you know, why did you slow play this stuff if you already had them? But I think they wanted to do them all at once rather than Battlehawks in February. And then, okay, we'll do Defenders in March. And then when April 16th, let's say, here you go. Here's the Vipers, you know, so they wanted to do them all at once and they were tweaking them along the way. As we've seen with the secondary logos, we're not even sure for sure what's official and what isn't at this point. So if they're having that issue now, figuring out what's going to be officially their secondary logo, they were having that for sure with all their logos. You know, I remember a few months back, Danny Garcia had a box and she was teasing what's in her box. That was the XFL logos for each team. You know, that you want, you know, these are the proposed logos. This is what we're working on. These are going to be the logos. So names and everything else. So yeah, I can see why people be angry. Like, oh my God, you had all the team names and logos in February. And here we are in November and we didn't get them till Halloween. But I don't think it was one size fits all. Although, you know, Anthony Beck got his gear beforehand. I don't think it was one size fits all. I think some teams were way early in the process. Like they already knew. Now we'll see what they do with DC. Well, they introduced the shield. They have a little bit slightly different logo. It's a secondary logo from 2020. I'm looking for that shield, but they're probably still tweaking that. But I can understand why people are aggravated about that. But I think some of these locations, the Anthony Beck, a lot of these coaches were working on getting into the XFL long before they were ever announced or hired. Anthony Beck been positioning himself for an opportunity to coach in the league since the league was bought out of bankruptcy by The Rock and Redbird Capital Partners and Danny Garcia and all that. So yes, I'm sure. You know, in the early stages, Anthony Beck was considered for maybe the Tampa franchise because that's kind of his home away from home. Tampa's no longer in the league. And then there was, you know, consideration. Maybe Anthony Beck could be someone who reps the New York Guardians because he's a former New York Jet, right? And he's got a close association in tri-state area and all that. He currently covers the Jets. So there were a lot of moving parts during all this, but and I'm sure Beck is extremely happy to be with St. Louis. That's the best brand to be with, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I get the frustration with all this and this process because a lot of people wanted to know this stuff. We knew they would slow play some of this stuff. When people hear February, they go, "What the hell?" So I get it. I get why people would be upset about that, but I don't think all 8 were all set. Even if all 8 names were set, they're still working on logos, colors, all that.
It is funny. I totally lost. I have my good joke here. It is funny how I totally lost my train of thought. I had too many jokes lined up. That never happens to me anymore.
It's okay.
I want to talk about the trademarks in Jamaica. I do want to talk about that and the copyright just real quick on that, but. I don't know. Give me something else, and I'll think of a question. I totally lost. I was texting Dorothy in the background, and I totally lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I probably went on too long there.
No,
so
you
probably can blame me for that. I don't know if you want to get into Vegas or any of that, but you know, I think this whole process with the XFL, how things have been rolled out, the coaches, and you know the team names, the logos. It's certainly something. It's certainly where it's left room for critique. So and then it's left the most diehard of the diehard fans, you know, they you don't want to lose them. And I don't think you are, to be honest with you, but you might have lost some of the New York Guardians people. So there's that.
I just, my only critique is I do, and I love Danny and The Rock, and I think everything is like so perfectly The Rock's pecs, right? Everything, we're so perfectly sculpted, everything like, maybe you could have done a little bit more of like, hey, this is what we're thinking of, or hey, these are some things, like even like you said, the ESPN thing comes out, it's like, oh no, like get rid of that. Like we have to be perfect all the time, and none of these things have rolled out perfectly. And it is just interesting where we have this league where it's so like, we are fan friendly, we are fan focused, we are transparent, we are everything, but yet none of it has been at all this entire time. And I just wish they wouldn't be so like uptight about that. It feels like it's a little uptight sometimes. Like we have to wait till this. And I'm OCD as anyone else. And I've designed logos and websites and have people help me with that. But like sometimes, when I was in news, you would work on a news package and you're like, it could be the best package in the world, news package, putting it together to air. But if you miss your deadline, doesn't matter, right? Like you got to hit, like at some point you got to just hit export and go. Like, I don't know. I just wish that they weren't so tied up with that sometimes. It feels like.
Yeah, and even though maybe we didn't like the answer, I appreciated Dwayne Johnson reaching out to that fan and being transparent and candid. You can debate whether or not the answer is good enough for people, the economic reasoning, stadium, all that. But I appreciated that he was transparent and candid. I thought that was cool. Rock didn't have to do that. He was a disappointed fan. That's heartbroken that the New York Guardians, an awesome brand for the league, is not returning. So that was cool of him reaching out like that. So more of that. Yeah, I think you need to do that with your fan base. You need to connect more. So we'll see. We'll see how things go moving forward. They got a lot of stuff. They need to, they can't, unless you're fully ready, you can't reveal stuff. You can't come out there and publicly say, we're thinking about assigning quarterbacks, but we're unsure. We might do 40 rounds in the draft, but maybe 45. We're thinking about maybe allocating 3 different drafts, but we're unsure. So we're still working that out. We might have somebody signed, but we might sign him before the draft. If you start doing that, that you're giving information, but you're not really giving anything of substance. You're just, you want to, when you're ready to present something, then you present it. If they had done the February, we'll tell you Battlehawks are coming back in February. And then we'll tell you March about the Defenders. And then, how angry people would have gotten, would have said, what the hell? Just give me the 8 names right now. What's going on here? What's the hell? Well, we're not ready yet. We're not sure if we're going with Las Vegas or if we're going with San Diego, which would have been good. All that. So they can't say that. So they have to be secretive in nature. They can't announce the stadiums until they finalize them. And then we still got one left. So that's just the way it went. So, people would have liked more information, but until everything is finalized, they can't come out with it.
We're playing in Vegas. We don't know where we're playing in Vegas. We have the Vegas Vipers are coming. We don't know where they're playing their games. I totally know. Like, don't announce. They never announce anything unless they're ready. Real quick, and then we're getting to the Vegas because that is the big. We've been teasing the whole show for that. I just thought it was funny. It came out yesterday. I was looking on the trademarks, and of course, Max is like, I already knew they were on there. But finally, all the trademarks were registered, right? San Antonio Brahmas and the Arlington Renegades. And then Max had the added, insights that they were all registered in Jamaica and then transferred over. Because we've known that for months. And we've talked and like, so, it's in some country and Jake Henry's hacking into, the Hungarian trademark database or whatever. But I just thought that was funny. Like we saw, like that is a mystery we solved. Like yesterday, when you're listening to this, like, how the hell did the XFL get away with it, right? It's like a crime movie. How did they get away with it? It's like, damn it, it was Jamaica. They had him in Jamaica. Don't you like that? Like, we have an answer to something.
Yeah, finally, right?
Yeah.
Finally something concrete, right? We can hold on. That's why, even though, some of the air came out of the balloon with all these announcements, it would have been a lot more fun if they didn't leak it. If they didn't leak it on their own site. When that happened, I think it was I got about 73 messages of people telling me it's on the website. They look at the names. These are the names. What? Sea Dragons? Really? What? So I think that took some of the fun out of it, like and all that, like it when they did a great thing at Texas Live at Arlington whenever it was July 24th, but or early April, we already knew where the cities were. So what is that? May, June, July, 3 months and change later. So I mean, their coaches. So it would have been nice if these things were, it's better when things feel like more official and all that when they're, So I think it took away some of we're happy the names have arrived, but I think because the way they got leaked out, it took away the oomph and the fun aspect of it. It is what it is.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for it. Maybe the draft, but the big. Because I want to have the one big read episode on here where it's like, hey, we got something like breaking down, and it's always the logo got F the day before, totally screwed up that launch. Cities, same thing, logos, same. That's all I want is one. And now, I mean, I guess the draft, right? I mean, that'll be the big thing. But I've always wanted that. Like here, oh my God, we know the names and all that stuff. I'm waiting for that. So. We're getting to, and then we're going to, because we'll transition to Alan's interview after this. The big Vegas stuff, that is the theme of the episode here, 45 minutes into whatever to our interview. We finally got to the theme of the episode. But, it's, I think I've called it the XFL's Field of Dreams, right? Like, do we need to find a cornfield somewhere outside of Las Vegas for us to build a stadium here for the XFL? Like, what are your thoughts on the XFL Vegas situation?
This is a black mark on the league, like the way I see it, because I totally understood why they drifted away from New York and Tampa and LA. But when you look at it, right, if you're going to get away from the New York Guardians because you feel that, it's a stadium issue, economic issue, all that, understandably so, very expensive to run the biggest of big city teams. But if you're going to get away from that, and then one of the cities you choose, you don't have a stadium for yet. I mean, I know I've heard for the longest time that they've been in talks with Allegiant Stadium. That's their preference. That's what they've been working on. They're driving a hard bargain. That's a difficult one for them. But listen, Las Vegas is in this current iteration of the XFL because Jerry Cardinal has interest in being in Nevada. Orlando is in this current iteration of the XFL because of Danny Garcia's connection to that area. The Brahmas are the Brahmas because of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now, these owners have reserved the right to make these own personal choices. I understand the cachet of Las Vegas for the XFL. It's a sexy city, the gambling, all that. It can be extremely popular. That market has gotten better for sports. It wasn't a hot place before, with the Knights and now the Raiders and all that. There was a long time there. You barely even noticed that they had sports teams, with all due respect to UNLV and all those other teams there, maybe the Running Rebels way back when. But, Vegas is a mistake by the XFL. If you're Guardians and you're not, and you're going to Las Vegas, fine. That sounds great. But if you don't have a stadium lined up, and here we are 3 months before the season starts, maybe this will age poorly and they'll end up in Allegiant and they'll have decent crowds and they'll do well out there and they'll have tie-ins with gambling and everything else locally and they'll make it work. And it's not the end of the world if they play at Cashman Field. It's not a preference. You want them to look like a professional football league and not look like a minor league, although, some people will label this as a minor league regardless. It is what it is. But I think it's a bad look on the XFL's part if they end up playing in, a baseball park, a minor league park, because they couldn't get the type of deal they wanted. They couldn't play in the type of stadium. That happens to new leagues for sure. This isn't easy. You had Kevin Seifert on your show a few months back, and he talked about how difficult it was going to be for stadiums and venues to be done. And then he was looking at the timeline saying, that's very difficult. That was the one thing he focused in on. And so, and here we are. They've locked up some great stadiums throughout the league, Alamo Dome, all that. So they've done a great job with that. But the Vegas one is not looking great because this is one of their hand-picked cities. They handpicked Las Vegas. They handpicked Orlando. They handpicked San Antonio. So you got to have your stadium set up here. And you can question whether or not that market, all these markets, you can question whether or not that market is going to embrace a second pro football league, a different pro football team. It's not a minor league. I know all those Vegas writers want to call these minor leagues. It's not. It's professional football. That's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think if they settle this and they're able to figure it out, and this isn't a situation where Las Vegas is playing in Texas or is a traveling team, or and Rod Woodson had a great comment in one of the articles talking about he don't care where they play. That's a football player's mentality. That's a football coach's mentality. From a business standpoint, aesthetic aspect, they need to get that squared away. And, I haven't been pushing the panic button because I always figured Jerry Cardinal and Redbird Capital, they'll make the right deal. And there's a reason why they chose Las Vegas. But the longer this goes on with them not having a stadium, their choice, you have to start questioning their choice of going into the Las Vegas market. Because if it were me, throwing away my New York bias, my own personal preference, I would be in San Diego, or a market like that. That's without a pro football team that I think would be, even though the Fleet didn't do great in the AF, that I think would be much more receptive to this league than the feeling that I'm getting being in contact with people in the Las Vegas area is that they don't care about this league unless they can interview The Rock. So I know New York cared about the league because they had the highest ratings in the league and they had great crowds, and they have fans, that are on social media still crying about the fact that the Guardians are not coming back. Las Vegas, you could have the Vipers playing there and people may not even know they exist. So hopefully they're able to square this away, because I think Rod Woodson's a cool coach. I like their colors, the blood red and the black. I think there's great potential with the brand. I think it's a cool sounding name for the Vegas Vipers. So all is not lost. It's not the end of the world. But it's one, these leagues make mistakes, these new leagues, they make bad choices. They end up relocating teams. They end up, this has been the history of football. So could the Vegas Vipers end up down the road? It's possible if they're playing in like the 10,000-year-old Cashman Field in front of 9,000 fans. We'll see.
And just to confirm, and then I have a follow-up question. It glitched just slightly at the beginning of your response. You said you believe Vegas is a mistake.
At this point, it's looking like it for sure. I could be incorrect. In a few months, all of a sudden they pick up steam. They have a hot team and it's a fun product. They're a cool looking team, and Rod Woodson's a great coach. And maybe over time, there's hiccups with these leagues. Like I mentioned earlier in this interview, I remember the original XFL. They were originally supposed to be the San Jose Demons, and they had a little bit of egg on their face, and they had to go play in San Francisco, and they ended up playing in a baseball stadium. And it turned out to be the best atmosphere in the league. It turned out the Demons were a fun franchise. So sometimes things can look bad on the surface and end up being great. Who knows? Maybe Cashman Field is great. I remember the Omaha Nighthawks ended up playing in a baseball stadium in the United Football League, and they had a cool atmosphere and a lot of fun with the Amon Greens and Jeff Garcias and all that. So maybe I could be wrong on this, but right now, at this moment, it definitely, when you don't have a stadium set up, it looks like a mistake. And if they don't end up playing at Allegiant Stadium, you got to question whether or not, you don't want this league to look like a bush league. There are people already going to label you as a minor league. So anyhow.
It was funny. So just prefacing when we get Alan's interview here, because Alan's saying like, well, they could play at Cashman and, for like a minor league, it's not the biggest deal because, it's kind of whatever. I go, Alan, like, you do not know who is owning this league and the egos and the hubris, and they don't want to be looked at as we are the Iowa whatever playing at Cashman Field in Vegas. We are the Vegas Vipers. We are playing at Allegiant. Like, I mean, it was just funny because he goes, well, yeah, like a lot of teams could play there. And I go, but they have, I was at Arlington and I interviewed, like, this is BDE with this league, and it's Danny, and this is her effing show. And I totally respect that. And like, I want to get more of that because I like that energy involved in this, where Fox is like, yeah, we can take it or leave it. Like, it's fine. Like, we have this, like, it exists. I like that. But it's weird to me that if you're having all this stuff and then we still release the Vegas Vipers, like, why, like, I would have pivoted before now. Is I guess my question.
Yeah, it's too late. You're too far in the game now to take a detour, and it's the thing is with like Allegiant is there's plenty of demand for dates at that particular stadium, and they charge up the wazoo. So they have all the leverage in the world there. You're not going to get a sweetheart deal from them. You're going to end up paying an exorbitant amount of money to rent that venue for those 5 dates. You can make concessions, you can do partnership, you can do all that, maybe give them the championship game if you want, but to try to give them an extra date and so more revenue. But yeah, it doesn't look good for the league. This happens a lot. Like I said, I think Vegas is a personal choice of Redbird Capital. I understand why they want to go in that market. I get it. You're thinking long-term, financially, gambling. It's sexy. Look at the properties Redbird's involved with: the Yankees, the Red Sox, the AC Milan. They're in partnership with LeBron James. This is like top of the line, partnership with The Rock. It's movie star. So Vegas is cachet, right? So I get why that choice was made, but we've reached the point now where you have to, in business, sometimes you have to take an L. So and it's a tough one. I understand finances and all that. It's a tough one to, basically be paying through the nose for rent, and you end up losing money maybe on that, but you might have to do that for the short term so you can have long-term gains. So that would be my take on it. To me, if they end up playing at Cashman Field, I'll understand it, be acceptable of it, but it just kind of shows that maybe they didn't think this one through the way they should have. And so that's kind of the story there. And, and it has nothing to do with the New York Guardians aspect of it for me, because I fully understood when the XFL ended in 2020 because of COVID, that there was a good chance that the Guardians wouldn't be back. Right. And so it's come to reality. This has to do with choosing the right markets and right cities. And you have to, I think for the most part, they've done a good job, 7 out of 8, pretty cool. But this Vegas thing, it's like I said, it's the open in this. It's a black mark on them if they're unable to get this done. The one shining gleam of hope you would think with them scheduling the draft in Vegas is that they have confidence in that they're gonna be able to make a strong impression and do a good job in that market. They have confidence that they're going to end up having the type of stadium situation. I mean, when you start looking into this situation, start thinking about it, you start thinking of all these alternative moves they can do, like purchasing Cashman Field, renovating it, buying real estate around it, turning it into their own thing. I mean, that's kind of like down the road. And they've got 3 months until they start games. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Well, and the fact that, as we record this tonight, DC did their town hall. Seattle's next week. That we had the San Antonio. We had the St. Louis one. I can't remember the order of it, but like Vegas still doesn't have. And what's so weird too is like they had the Vegas town hall announced. Then after Hurricane Ian, they moved it. And so I'm like, why? What were you guys going to talk about at that town hall?
Yeah, I thought they were going to be called the Vegas TBDs, the Vegas to be determines, because look at it. I mean, everything with them, between their offensive coordinator, their stadium, everything with them has been to be determined. So they're like kind of last in line with all this stuff. So, yeah, it's kind of funny. Maybe they end up in first when the smoke clears and they win the XFL championship. When it's all said and done, they have the most exciting team. But right now they've been a little behind on quite a few things.
Last question. I think we'll do other stuff another time. I think that we've kind of exhausted all this tonight. I know, Matt, we were going to talk about Alumni Academy quarterback, but I think this was a valiant, conversation here. Appreciate your time. You talked about Redbird, right? Jerry, wanting Vegas. Brandon and I thought Brandon was great in kind of our recap of kind of the Axios event a couple weeks ago now. Was that a week and a half, whatever that was. Danny and Jerry talking about the XFL. We've talked a lot about Redbird invests in things, right? Like the Yankees, we are investing in that. AC Milan, we are investing in that. Like where they are starting this, I mean, I know that the XFL existed, but clearly they, hey, we're moving stuff, whatever. Like I just curious your thoughts on that. And I know we've texted a little bit, but I think that'll be my last question today of just like, what do you make of that? And some of these decisions, which I think are hubris around, some of the things that are going on.
One hand, there's a lot you can be critical of. I'm also impressed by the fact it kind of goes against their nature and it goes against script that they're actually taking a chance on this. I know there's a lot of trepidation involved here because it's going to cost a lot of money, but Redbird is used to buying into winning entities, between the Yankees, the Red Sox, Liverpool, AC Milan. These are winning entities. Their partnerships with the NFL, everyone else in the sporting landscape that's on Dallas Cowboys. So these are top brands. So for them to take a chance, I know that it helps having The Rock and Danny Garcia. That's great. But for them to, and they're being partnered now with Disney, which is as big as it gets, right? But for them to take a chance on this concept, which we've seen already through our articles in Las Vegas and all that, and we'll see leading into the launch of the XFL season in February 18th, we see how many people just kind of like laugh and mock these entities and think that they're meaningless and fruitless and worthless and that these players are garbage and that they shouldn't waste their time. They'd be better off just donating money or burning their money than starting this league. So for Redbird to take this kind of risk, this is a risk because they can have a good league. They can have quality football, which I think they're going to have, and they can have great coaching, good fan base, and still fail and still go under and still not make a big enough profit. So I think I give them credit for trying this because this goes against the script for them. This isn't betting on the Cowboys. Doing a business deal with the Cowboys, you're guaranteed to make money. Doing a business deal with Liverpool, AC Milan, you're going to make money. Sorry. You'd have to be really stupid to lose money. So even the Commanders make money through their noses, and look how many dumb things they've done.
Watch your mouth.
Sorry, PR wise and everything else. Good thing their owner's trying to get the hell out. That's a blessing. Anyhow, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I give Redbird credit. So yeah, while I am criticizing them for the Vegas choice and for not being able to finalize that, hopefully they are able to. I do give them credit for taking a risk on this because there's a chance when the smoke clears that this fails and that they get egg on their face and they were unable to make a league work. That they're better off just partnering with leagues and teams and not starting their own league. So I'm rooting for them to make it work. So we'll see how it goes, but it's great for the landscape. But yeah, it's fascinating. There's a lot of people out there that fully expect this league to fail. Some people don't expect it to last the full season. They don't expect it. They expect them to lose so much money that Redbird just folds up shop and goes, screw this. We're not doing this anymore. We're not spending $100 million. We're getting out of here. So for Redbird to try this, I give them credit for it. It's brave.
Yeah, I just want more than just Jerry Cardinal saying, well, people like football. We wanted to do football. It's the same thing we heard from the USFL is, that Axios event did not, if this was a year ago, that's fine. Like, it just didn't strike me as a lot of confidence.
I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan, to be honest, with a lot of the messaging that I hear from like the USFL or the XFL. A lot of the coaches too. I give the coaches a pass because a lot of the coaches, they do have that mentality of developing. You got a lot of college kids. So they think about, I'm going to develop them into pro football players. I'd rather them use that terminology, teach these young college kids or these players how to be great professional football players rather than we've got to work hard to make them good enough to go play in the NFL. I'm not a big fan of that messaging. And then I'm not a big fan of, you need more football, that kind of messaging, the market. People like football. We've done the research. People like football. Yeah, people love football. No question about it. But you have to present. The XFL was like back in 2020 was kind of defying the odds because everybody expected it to be a joke and it wasn't. And then everybody expected it to be like, and then people were like, wow, this league is lit. It's so cool. So, and the quality of play, and then we're seeing it right now. Oh, people laugh at the XFL, but you got 24 players that are in the NFL right now watching PJ Walker throwing 70-yard touchdowns, lasers. You're watching Taylor Heineke lead the Washington Commanders. You see the players all over the CFL as all-stars, 6 of them. So even when the CFL screwed up their all-star list, there were still 6 XFL players. Wesley Sutton from Montreal made his way on the list. He played in the XFL for your Dragons. So anyhow, but we see the quality. I have no doubt about the quality of football players out there, but I think the messaging needs to be a little bit better. We want to present the best possible professional football league that we can. So, I mean, try that. And then you're not saying that you're trying to be better than the National Football League by saying that. We're trying to present the best possible professional football league. And so, so that's got to be your messaging, rather than we're here just to feed or service them. We're here just to, our guys aren't good enough. Our league's for the guys who aren't good enough. So that's not, so Player 54 is a much better messaging. So yes, I listened to Jerry Cardinal and Axios event, and it's a lot of the tired kind of like, you're not convincing me with that, so you're not convincing me with there's more football that needs to be out there, so Oliver Luck did a tremendous job going out there selling the XFL, I'll say that much. They need another voice. It can't just be, they got some real smart people in that room, so they need a football voice. With all due respect to Danny Garcia and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, they're not scouting fullbacks. They can't tell me about, a whole bunch of different analytics in terms of football players and football games. So it would be nice if a Russ Brandon stepped forward, or Mark Ross a little bit more, Doug Whaley. Got a lot of intelligent football people in there that can kind of like, and the messaging needs to be a little bit different. Vince McMahon would have fired everybody for just coming out there and constantly saying we're a developmental league, we're a minor league, our guys aren't good enough. We're getting the bums that couldn't make the NFL. We're going to make them non-bummish. So basically, if there's such a term. So, but yeah, so I agree with you, Reed. Some of this messaging doesn't really hit home, because you and I know that what this league can represent and how good it can potentially be. Same thing with the USFL, and that, this kind of tired messaging doesn't do the product justice. Doesn't do it justice to say we're a minor league of cast-off players that are not good enough, and we're going to try to make sure that they're good enough so they could go play in another league. That's not great messaging. You want to say that you want to put together the most as fan-friendly of a pro sports product as possible. That's going to be innovative. That's going to be ahead of the curve. And that's going to service the over 98% of pro football players that don't make the National Football League. There's a lot of talent out there. That's the thing when you get in the weeds with these leagues, Reed, and you start connecting with all these players and finding out these players, is you see how many damn football players there are out there. It's like, wow. And so now I feel bad. We're going to get to the draft that the XFL is not going to draft all these thousands of players that, they're only fielding 8 teams. I'm all for them expanding their preseason rosters, by the way. If they want to expand them, I'm all for it. There's going to be a lot of players that are unfortunately in the draft pool that don't get drafted. That's unfortunate. There could be some guys who get drafted that get replaced in January. So, but I'm just amazed with how much talent there is out there. You need to do more justice to the talent that's out there, because I think there's players that the NFL misses on. How about that? And I do think that there are players that, just didn't get an opportunity for playing time in the NFL that are good enough to play in the NFL. They just don't, there's no time or space for them. So rather that than these guys weren't good enough to be in the NFL.
I totally agree. And especially it's been such a high the last couple of weeks watching, Taylor Heineke and PJ, lead. I know PJ won that game last week. I mean, let's be fair, and it was even the bad call on DJ Moore. They came out and they said, well, he wasn't actually in the end zone. But my messaging, and I so late in this episode, and no one will make, I don't know, God knows who makes it.
We'll see what happens.
Said the same thing on Monday. Like I said the same thing Monday, when Brandon and I were talking about the logos. Like, I'm not saying this is not the case. It totally could be the case. I am so tired of feeling like you, Brett, Matt Lyons, all the people in the group, Andrew Murray, Jay, Anthony. I'm so tired of feeling like I care so much more about this as a wedding videographer that lives in Seattle, that go, CFL, I talk with these people. I see sense and wonder, and I so enjoy conversations we have. And I just got accredited today, going to the Grey Cup, and they appreciate all this stuff. Like, I'm tired of feeling like the loser covering this, and that I care so much more about this. I'm not saying that is the case, but that is how it feels, and perception is reality. And like you said, embracing these stories and these narratives of people that care and the players and everything else. Like, I'm just so tired of like, we are like the weirdos that care, and they're like, I'm like, but you, like, I don't have 15 million invested. I don't have 50 million invested. I don't have like, care about it and make us care and make the fans care. I believe the coaches care. I think Hines cares and Beck cares, and I think Woodson cares, but none of this executive any dealings I had with anyone, for the most part, I don't want to say blanket, but I want to see more of that. Like, you are a niche fan-friendly league, and I think you really need to, as I break my microphone, I think you really need to embrace that. Does that make sense? Am I totally off base?
No, you're not. I think you need to like focus on, because you're going to give yourself a heart attack. I hear you, Reed. I think you need to focus on more of the positives, like at least more of the, I agree with you though. I feel you, Reed. I understand where you're coming from with a lot of this. But I do think I do think, because you're so passionate about it, because you care so much, you want to see it do well. I think sometimes you might go a little, you need to like focus on the more of the Anthony Becks and the coaches and the players that are getting opportunities, and be thankful that how crazy is it that the XFL is actually coming back? This thing should have died 2 summers ago. This should have been dead in the water. I can't believe it's coming back. I know I've joked with you guys in the past that I wonder what the next XFL is going to look like after the alien invasion. So, but this is crazy that it's coming. We're just, I get, there are legitimate gripes. There are legitimate things you can critique, all that. At the end of the day, I know, I've been a little hesitant. I don't like to burn the playbook before I see the plays. Some of the plays I've seen so far, there have been some incomplete passes, and so they've had to punt. They punted a little too much. But I want to see what they do moving forward before I completely kill the league. And I am holding them up to what I feel, people will laugh at this, as a high standard, because the XFL that I followed 2 years ago did such a tremendous job. So I'm holding them on fair or unfair, holding them to that standard. And so they have to produce. I think they'll do a good job with the football. I think they'll do a good job with the production. And so let's see, but I have to see the plays first. I'm not going to give you a bunch of touchdowns and give you a bunch of points if you haven't scored yet. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But I get it. These things, we're very passionate about this topic and about this subject and about this, about these things. And we won't, we're hoping we want them to do a better job of connecting. So we'll see how they do. Proof's going to be in the pudding. If they deliver some of the stuff they've already delivered, then, there's going to be some failing in the future.
Dorothy, my wife, has told me she married me because she enjoys my passion. So at least if it gets me exiled from all about football, at least it got me a wife. So I will, thank that. But my last comment, and I disagreed so vehemently with Mark. Perry had the article out before the logos and stuff, and it was like, XFL's like, just be happy it's back. Like, shut up. Quit, like the league note, like just be happy. And I don't agree with that either. So somewhere in between of like me, the screaming maniac, and Mark Perry being like, just shut up and be happy it's back, there is the middle ground. And hopefully,
you gotta find that middle ground. You gotta be happy. Your wife likes you because you're crazy.
I hope she more than likes me.
But sometimes the crazy can go overboard. Sometimes crazy, there could be a little too much crazy, and you could drive yourself nuts, lose your mind and everything else. So, I think it's like everything in life. It's not always black and white. It's in the middle. There's gray area there. So you got to kind of meet that there. I appreciate the fact sometimes I do think that NFL fans of just sometimes just go a little too overboard with their venom and all that, they should be a little bit more happier about, because at the end of the day, this is what we want, right? So we want these games to happen, these players and all that. So anyhow, but we've talked for long enough for sure, Reed.
I think this is the all-star performance tonight. Best one. I don't know how long we've gone. I'm going to have a really short intro to record here after this. Mike Mitchell, caring for your family, doing your job, everything else you do, coming on here to spend hour and a half plus on all this. Like, thank you so much. I hope people just, respect and appreciate that and you taking the time. So thank you so mumuch.
Hey, no problem. Thank you, Reed, for having me on. It's fun. We're approaching exciting times ahead.
So I've been told. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. I thank you all so much again.
Thank you.
Well, I'm excited today. Not, the best of circumstances here. We're talking about the home of the Vegas Vipers. We have Alan Snell here with lvsportsbiz.com. Had the big article coming out about looking at other options, other than the Allegiant Field. How are you doing, first of all, sir?
Well, things are pretty busy here. It's interesting that the announcement about the Vipers just came this week, because we are being besieged with new teams here in Las Vegas. So it'll be interesting to see how this team carves out its niche in a very, very busy and growing market here in Vegas.
That's actually a great point, because we get that a lot. Like, why go to Vegas? Like, why didn't they go to San Diego or they're in St. Louis, but any of the places like the non-NFL. What did you make of hearing just that the XFL was deciding to go to Vegas?
Well, I think our market is the hot market right now. We are the flavor of the month, and we are a growing market. We're about 2.3 million people and growing. But I think a lot of sports franchises and owners are romanced by the amount of tourists and visitors who come in, and we're around 40 to 43 million visitors a year. And besides going to trade shows and vacations, they are looking for maybe some sports entertainment. So I think a lot of the teams get easily romanced by this big, gigantic number of 43 million visitors a year. What's interesting about our market is that a lot of the people who attend, like our two major league teams, the Raiders and the Vegas Golden Knights, the Raiders easily is 40 to 50% tourists in that stadium. And the Vegas Golden Knights can fluctuate wildly. Sometimes it's only a few hundred fans, but sometimes there's literally thousands of fans with the opposition. So I think the XFL coming here to Las Vegas was probably because, we're a hot topic, number one. Number two, they're probably thinking that people will probably might want to catch a game, if they're here on vacation. The third thing is we are a growing market. I do have to say the Vipers, will be competing with other teams like the Las Vegas Aces. There's a new team in the NBA G League. The NBA G League Ignite is based here in Henderson, which is Metro Las Vegas. And also I just did an item about we have a new box lacrosse team that's starting to play in the arena where the Las Vegas Aces play at Mandalay Bay. They're called the Desert Dogs. I keep on wanting to call them the Devil Dogs. I just remember eating Devil Dogs as a kid, but they're called the Desert Dogs. They start in December in indoor lacrosse league. So, it'll be interesting to see how the Vipers, compete. And, the point of the story I wrote this week really was about where are they going to play? They have not even announced a stadium yet, which, the season, I believe, starts the week after the Super Bowl. So we're talking whatever it is, February 23rd or whatever the date is. And I think it would be helpful for the Las Vegas market to know what stadium they're going to use. I've been kind of talking with different people about this the past week, and in Allegiant Stadium is a huge, huge stadium. It's a 65,000 seat stadium. It's a dome stadium. Obviously, it's way too big, for an XFL team. The attendance also kind of varies wildly with the XFL teams. I mean, I'm just going to do a wild guess and say they might get 5,000 to 8,000 people a game, perhaps. Maybe, I don't know, depending on just the the particular weekend. And they did look at a pretty high-end minor league baseball park called Las Vegas Ballpark, which is in a suburb of Summerlin. It's where the AAA Aviators play, which is the Oakland Athletics affiliate, and it's a beautiful ballpark. It's in fact, the facility was used by the NFL for their Pro Bowl, skills competitions. So football has been in the ballpark, but the president of the team said, he didn't feel it would be a fit, and he recommended Cashman Field. Cashman Field is the former baseball park where the AAA team used to play in downtown Las Vegas, and it's where the Las Vegas Lights play. I believe it's the United Soccer League, and I do know they do get a soccer field in there pretty easily with a lot of room on the side as well. So, and you can probably get about, it packs about 10,000 people maximum. So that would be a potential, I think. That was Don Logan, who's the president of the Aviators and runs the baseball park for the AAA team. That's why he suggested the XFL go to Cashman Field. And it does kind of make sense, I suppose. UNLV used to play in a stadium, an open air stadium called Sam Boyd Stadium, which is about 40 to 45,000. It's closed now. So when UNLV moved into the Raiders football stadium, they closed down Sam Boyd, and that's not really an option for the Vipers. So, we'll see. I mean, perhaps at the end of the day, maybe they will rent out Allegiant Stadium. It seems so much bigger than they really need. It's an indoor stadium, and there's a lot of costs that go into running a stadium for a football event. UNLV, I think, spends at least $150,000 to rent that stadium for each of its games. So my bet is that they probably would go into Cashman Field, downtown Las Vegas, or, perhaps maybe they'll play in Allegiant. And although, like I said, it's hard to believe they would open up that stadium when you don't have, the number of fans to really justify it.
Well, that's the interesting thing. So lots of things to that. I got a lot of follow-up questions here now. I certainly believe the XFL feels like they will be drawing more than 5,000 to 8,000 people, for, they got about 20, I think it was 23 in Seattle when they played in 2020, and they were looking at 28,000 in St. Louis. So I don't know, again, realistic or not, but I certainly imagine they feel like they're drawing more than 8,000 people, which is why even if you're looking at Cashman Field, there would have to be some sort of retrofitting to, add bleachers or add whatever there.
Yeah, I mean, they max out at 10,000, but, they could potentially put more temporary seating in there perhaps. Las Vegas is a very tricky market. I do remember that some of the numbers, being the 20,000 mark for some of the previous games. The thing about Las Vegas, which is kind of weird, we're having so many new teams come online right now, and we are reaching kind of a saturation point in our market. So UNLV, their football team, depending on the opposition, they'll draw, 10, 12, 15,000. There's a lot of freebie tickets that are tossed out there. And they're obviously looking, the attendance numbers that are announced are usually tickets distributed. It doesn't necessarily mean it's human beings in the building. So, yeah, I mean, I really don't know what the XFL thinks would be a realistic number for attendance. Maybe 10,000. I mean, Cashman might be kind of pushing it at 10,000. They probably might need some temporary, seating infrastructure at that particular venue. It's too bad that Sam Boyd Stadium is offline, because that stadium, open air stadium, 40,000, plenty of seats, plenty of room there, 40,000 people. And it's a much, it's a no frills football stadium. I mean, there's not much going on there. It's in part of the Las Vegas market that's on the fringes of the market. So it's not really, I don't know what the XFL plans to do in terms of marketing and promoting, and how it wants to fit into other businesses, or who their business partners are. I really haven't seen much on that. But yeah, you'd think, you'd think they'd have, their stadium issue kind of squared away at this point. The schedule, like it begins, late February. They're into their schedule.
A couple things. So, can you explain to our listeners why they cannot play at Sam Boyd? Because every time we've brought this up since earlier this year, would they just play at Sam Boyd? Because originally, the people did think they'd do Allegiant, maybe tarp off the top, whatever. I mean, that's what they do in Seattle, right? They're not opening the whole. But why, if they're not doing Allegiant, why can they not do Sam Boyd?
Yeah, I think from what I understand, under the deal between UNLV and the Raiders, which manage Allegiant Stadium, Sam Boyd was going to be closed, and it's unclear to me what the future of Sam Boyd Stadium or really the land, because it's former federal property. It's in kind of an odd location. I don't know if you've been there. It's kind of near the Las Vegas Wash, kind of on the outskirts of the whole area, and it's it was former Bureau of Land Management property, I understand. So I don't know. I mean, I've been told by the facilities manager for UNLV that the stadium is closed, and it's going to be closed under the agreement between UNLV and the Raiders and the stadium board. We have a public stadium authority board, which is the public side of the equation in terms of the running of Allegiant Stadium. Allegiant Stadium technically is, in writing, is technically owned by the stadium authority, but for all intents and purposes, it looks like it's owned by the Raiders because they've run everything. They have hired a management company to oversee the day-to-day operations of the stadium, but the Raiders run it, and Sam Boyd is closed under the deal that has UNLV playing at Allegiant Stadium.
Do you find it odd that this is not all taken care of? I mean, it's one thing they announced the cities back at the end of July, and they said, hey, put in your season ticket deposits. And we had 7 of 8 stadiums, Lumen Field and the Dome in St. Louis, all that, taking deposits. It's always been to be announced, the Vegas Stadium. Now we have the Vegas Vipers officially announced, big brand reveal this week. Is it surprising that they don't have this finalized and it's November 2nd here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why people if to me, if you're a fan, part of the experience is the facility. So, I don't know how you make your decision about whether you want to buy tickets for games or season tickets or whatever, ticket deal you want without knowing what the building is that's going to host the game, because, part of the experience is the venue. So, the difference between Allegiant Stadium and Cashman Field is, you're talking between a Lexus and a Pinto. I mean, it's a broad, set of experiences there between the two venues. So at the end of the day, I mean, I thought they would go into Allegiant, and have kind of a UNLV kind of setup. The upper sections, the upper bowl is closed. They limit to the main concourse. And, like I said, UNLV football games, they say they announce these 15,000, crowds. But to me, if you eyeball the crowd, it looks more like 8,000 to 10,000 people in the building. And, I guess at the end of the day, they can only, again, it depends on how much cash they have on hand. It's not an inexpensive endeavor to rent out an Allegiant Stadium. Like I said, UNLV rents it at least at $150,000 and up per game. So obviously that's a lot more than what Cashman would cost, which is, I think, controlled by the city of Las Vegas. So the XFL would have to be. I got an interesting response from the city, because I did inquire about whether the XFL team, the Vipers, would play at Cashman. I've not received back. Usually these guys are pretty good at getting back to me. The fact that they did not respond back to me, I kind of interpret that as kind of a yes, that's going to happen. Because usually if it's not going to happen, they're quick with the no. Oh no, it's not going to happen. But these guys have not gone back to me. So to me, when they don't get back to me, I kind of interpret that they're trying to hide something from me. So
Do
I
you
have a feeling that something might be in the works with Cashman.
do you for the Allegiant? Do you think it's just the financials? I mean, is there any other reason why it wouldn't be Allegiant, just that they can't come to an agreement between like, hey, it's going to cost this much to run it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I mean, it's such a big stadium. Like I said, I mean, it's a stadium where that usually has 60 to 65,000 people. It just would be kind of a different experience. I mean, it depends on as a fan what kind of experience you're looking for. I mean, to me, I'd rather go to an event that is kind of packed full because I think there's just a different energy level, a different vibe. That's kind of part of the experience of going to the game. Besides following the specific players and the team than being in a huge, cavernous venue where, you have 50,000, just empty seats, so, I don't know if you've been to Allegiant Stadium. It's an impressive indoor facility. I mean, has a lot of upper end kind of seating, a lot of suites, a lot of club style seating opportunities. And, the XFL is kind of billing itself as kind of a developmental minor league that could be a feeder league to the NFL. So it just, when you think that, if you think in terms of minor league experience, you just think of a smaller, more intimate venue.
I will tell you that I don't know if the XFL wants to be thought of as that. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not, there's not some truth to it, but I mean, they are branding this as, I mean, this is The Rock and Danny. I mean, this is their pet
Right. I mean, you have
project.
some big names, obviously, Dwayne Johnson and good for them for, hooking up with, the Disney group of black platforms and broadcasters, which I think is terrific. And it, I think, adds some legitimacy to the league. But, the previous, I think, whatever that, the federation, the association, which was like just previous, I mean, mostly their followers and viewers are just hardcore football fans who just want to watch football. And I will tell you that, and I did see the XFL. We actually did a story on something to consider is that we already have what I consider minor league football, which is the indoor football league. We actually have the owner of the Vegas Golden Knights, Bill Foley, also owns a team here called, I think it's the Nighthawks. They play in an arena in Henderson, and the indoor football league has a partnership with the XFL. They have a formal partnership in terms of, and they use the term minor league, and in terms of having a relationship where players can transfer seamlessly between indoor football league teams or to the XFL teams. I mean, I understand that The Rock is kind of a big name, and they have Disney behind it, but at the end of the day, these are players who are dreaming to play for the NFL, and that to me just says it's a AAA feeder kind of operation that that's the NFL teams can kind of keep an eye on as well.
A couple more, I'll let you go. I appreciate your time.
Sure.
So, one of our listeners, Max, has done a lot of research into like other potential venues and like can they retrofit the Speedway or can they do all these crazy things? But Gorman Field brought up, or Gorman,
Right.
Is
Right.
that
So Gorman, I mean, that's a really nice facility. It's it's kind of the famed high school football stadium, and it's an impressive facility. It's definitely more modern and more impressive than Cashman for sure. So I haven't heard anything about Gorman, but I don't know if Gorman would kind of want to go down that path. I mean, it's in an area of this growing suburb of Summerlin, which I don't know if they would be into hosting, XFL professional football games versus a Gorman high school game. So, those are kind of issues that would have to be ironed out. But in terms of the venue itself, it's an impressive venue, and it's definitely capable of hosting an XFL team. I would think, in terms of just the the characteristics of the stadium itself.
any other potentials between Cashman, Gorman, or Allegiant? Right? I mean, it seems like there's not a lot of options.
No, I mean, they could, I mean, if they just need to play a football game, they could potentially open up their checkbook and pay for Allegiant. I mean, I just and just talking to people, I just did not get the sense that Allegiant Stadium seemed like a possibility, but it just when it came down to the actual nuts and bolts of the deal, I was just being told by people that that Allegiant Stadium was just it was just too big for the XFL product.
Uh, the other idea, I guess one more thing on that. So for the Cashman Field, you said if they have to bring in extra bleachers and stuff, is that
Right, because they max out at around 10,000 people. Yeah.
Is that size set up that they could do that they could bring?
I think they could, because that's based on the layout of the soccer field. Because I do notice that when the Las Vegas Lights play there, they can fill all the existing seating, but at light soccer games there is a lot of room on one of the sidelines. I mean, it's basically they have like the entire section of right field to center field is pretty much empty. So, they could potentially put in some temporary seating there. I mean, probably several thousand seats, I would think. So there is some extra space there. And, you would have you've seen bowl games played in baseball parks. I think there's the one in Yankee Stadium. The Rays ballpark in St. Petersburg has hosted some football games. So I think Wrigley Field has had games. So it could be done. At one time, our it's hard to believe because everything is all about amenities in the stadiums and single sport venues. But we were a country of multi-purpose stadiums at one time.
Well, it certainly wouldn't be uncalled for the XFL. I mean, the Arlington team is playing at Choctaw, which was the former Rangers, and they've heavily retrofitted that. Like, you look at the seating chart for that stadium, it's like insane. But I mean, it's certainly not out of the realm of them bringing in and modifying to do that.
Yeah, it could be done. I mean, quite frankly, like I said, Las Vegas is so new, and there's so many new teams that are coming online. The Las Vegas Aces generated a lot of interest when they won their WNBA championship. And like I said, you have literally 3 new teams just coming in one swoop. The G League Ignite, you have the indoor lacrosse team that starts in December, and you have the XFL team. And quite frankly, just from the buzz and what I can kind of see on social media, there's still like very limited interest in the XFL team here in our own Las Vegas market. Honestly, most of the chatter has been from people outside of Las Vegas. They seem more interested in the Vipers and the people here in Las Vegas, honestly. There just hasn't been a lot of public buzz or talk, maybe because, everyone is just kind of focused on what's in front of their eyes, which is like, the G League Ignite, they start this month. The lacrosse team, which is and the lacrosse team is owned by some pretty high profile names. Joe Tsai, who's the owner of the Brooklyn Nets. Steve Nash, who was just fired by the Nets, he's an owner. I think Dustin Johnson, and also the biggest name of all, Wayne Gretzky. They're all co-owners of this lacrosse team. So people interested in that team are coming online. But honestly, Reed, I got to tell you, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Rock and his friends have in mind in terms of promoting and hyping this team, but honestly, I haven't seen a lot of promotional buzz about the Vipers in our market yet. I do know they have a very high-profile coach, Hall of Famer, former Raiders guy. So, having like a big name like Woodson, I think is a big deal. So, I mean, that's kind of like that will that'll definitely attract some eyeballs and generate some interest out of the gate.
Last 2 for me. Being Vegas, uniquely situated market with the casinos, hotels, all that stuff. I think the Orlando team, they're also hiring like an experienced director to kind of help do ticket sales in terms of like maybe more travel to Florida and kind of all that stuff. I mean, do you see them in Vegas working with the casinos and the hotels and travel packages? I mean, it
could happen. I mean, I will tell you that we have a very active LVCVA. That's our Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. They're the public tourism agency, and they they work very hard at keeping an eye on all the dates and trying to get conventions to maybe stay an extra day or two to maybe take in a sports event. So there's definitely a lot of interest. So, I mean, sports tourism is a big deal in our market. Let's not forget we have NASCAR. We just had a NASCAR race only a couple of weeks ago. In fact, we have 2 NASCAR races a year, and also the Hot Rod Association is in town this weekend. We have a really big car show. SEMA's in town, and the NHRA has had a presence there. So to your point, there is a lot of tourism-based promotions that do try to tie in sports events. I mean, football is really popular. I mean, you will have people who just have to watch football even after the Super Bowl. It's people still don't have enough of it. They still have to watch football, and I think you could potentially see, especially depending on who the players are who end up on the Las Vegas roster. You might have interesting players who have like followings in their local regions or areas, and you might have fans who follow the players who might want to come and catch games.
Last one for me, and this is something that's been batted around because obviously the whole XFL is being housed in Arlington, right? We're flying people out.
Right.
Anyway,
that seems to be, that's kind of like their headquarters, really.
Yeah. So they're going to be flying people into Seattle or Vegas or whatever to play, housing, training everyone down in Arlington. If they abandon Vegas, keep the name, and just have that team as a traveling team. They play. I mean, you're a sports guy. I mean, anything, because I mean, people, we get sent all sorts of different theories, but that's kind of one of the more prevalent ones. Is
I kind of like that idea. They kind of like it could be like a barnstorming team, and hit San Diego, hit a Portland. You can be like the Western United States team, and just maybe play a game in Albuquerque, play a game at the Pit down there in Albuquerque. I mean, I kind of like that idea, actually. Las Vegas, it's still, I mean, to me, there's just such a jumble of these kind of minor league-y kind of products that have come online here in Las Vegas that it might not be a bad idea just to have a team that's basically the Western United States team, and how many home games are they having? Like about eight home games, or what? How many?
There'll be five home, 5 away. Well, and technically, so I mean, but so you would just place them like they would just go play. They would just be the away team at all the already established stadiums.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the Vipers, like just the West Coast Vipers, and play in Las Vegas, play in San Diego, play in Portland. Even pop maybe, hey, throw a game into Boise, into I mean, it's the XFL. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you do something a little creative, so and especially if the stadium issue is not ideal here, so it might be ideal in a different market. So
well, Alan, I really appreciate your time today, stopping by in the middle of your workday here and doing all this stuff. So thank you with LV. I got it here, the lvsportsbiz.com. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, sounds good. Great talking with you, Reed.
Well, I'm slowly working my way through my infinity gauntlet of interviewing all the CFL on TSN panel. We have CFL legend Matt Dunigan here. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Ryan. Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Just first off, how's everything going for you this week? We're getting ready for the semifinals here. CFL, how's everything going on?
Well, we just got off conference calls this morning, a couple of them. Just teeing up the East and West semis and talking about everything programming to interview requests to storylines, and it's interesting always on those calls, Reed, because we you get outside noise, you get a lot of input from different folks about what should be on top of the list and what shouldn't. At the end of the day, we got a pretty good collection of people that we can draw on and tap into their expertise, and on those phone calls come up with a pretty good game plan for this weekend's games on Sunday, and yeah, teeing up to be pretty solid at contest too. So we're all looking forward to it. And it's that time of year, where it's do or die, put up or shut up. Love it.
It's good. So for rounding out the regular season, weird weekends of games. So we had Nathan Rourke came back that, kind of mattered just to see kind of how he looked. How did you think Nathan looked? And I was pretty disappointed by the BC Lions in general against the Blue Bombers. What did you make of their showing?
It's hard to take anything out of that other than the fact that Nathan got through what he needed to get through and take another step to coming back and being 100%. You can mimic everything you want to, Reed, in practice and try to simulate game conditions, but it's just not going to happen because nobody's trying to take your head off. Nobody's going to hit you. You're not going to blow out of your stance with the torque that you would in a game and put the pressure on your whatever injury you're coming off of. In this case, with Nathan with his foot. So, although we didn't see him very mobile, he checked off a couple of boxes for himself and the football team. One, taking hits, getting in live action, going through his progressions, and gaining confidence there and knowing that now I think he can almost 100% for sure say, hey, I'm fine. I don't have to think about me. I can think about playing the game and executing. And that's a big hurdle to overcome because, like I said, you can't mimic those things in practice. You can only do it in game conditions when people are trying to take you out. So I thought it was a big step for the Lions. I don't take much away from those football games. I did see Richie Hall's defense all over the BC Lions attack. I could see the progressions. I saw it earlier in the season when Nathan was playing. I saw Richie Hall take away Nathan's first couple of reads and then jump people and his check downs, and they got a turnover early in this football season on it. And it's just, to me, experience from a defensive coordinator, able to understand what's going on, what makes this kid tick, understanding Jordan McSimick's offensive system and how he teaches his quarterbacks to go through progressions. And you understand those, you can connect the dots defensively and kind of direct them to a certain spot and then be able to attack that and jump it. And they did that. So I did see Winnipeg do that early. And when Nathan was in there, and I thought that was very interesting. I checked that off as a box in my head going, okay, I'll be paying attention to that down the road because they're just showing you a little glimpse of how they're going to stop the BC Lions if, in fact, they get by Calgary.
It was funny. There was a moment in the game, and I tweeted that ended up getting kind of viral. But when Jake Thomas had tackled Nathan Rourke, Nathan went to go reach for his hand. It was just kind of a funny moment. And I thought, man, this is I tweeted, Jake Thomas needs to be a national enemy after this because this is like Canada's child here. We have thrown him on the ground. Did you laugh at that? I didn't think it was that serious, but people seemed to get pretty wild about it.
I don't know. I didn't think it was. I thought it was like, what are you doing, Nathan? This guy's not your buddy. And he's certainly, and he's thinking the same thing. For these 60 minutes, it's, I'm not doing you any favors. In fact, my job is to make you as uncomfortable as possible. You can lay your ass down there as long as you want to, but I'm not going to help you up. So, I thought it was great. I thought, I thought it was very, organic, it's amazing. Yeah, it was like, I love it, and Nathan all right, I guess I was a little out of line there thinking I'd get help from a defensive tackle. Yeah. And oftentimes, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but I would never expect that as a quarterback to get some love from the opposition during a game.
It just kind of spoke to the naivety that is Nathan Rourke, and here, come on. It spoke more to that. I thought it was just funny that it was a good personality moment there in the middle of a football game.
Yeah, it was a glimpse into both of their minds. It was like F you and okay, yeah, I guess I was out of line there thinking I'd get help. It's like crazy me, living in a different world. But the kids had a euphoric start. 2 seasons, coming in the way he did last year. And I think what I don't know if you've talked about this before on your shows, but I think what really helped the young quarterback out was not only having Michael Riley in the room last year, but taking all the reps during the regular season, during practice and throughout the week. That's huge, right? Because now people are used to your cadence, used to your way about addressing the huddle. You're comfortable with all the guys in the room, and you're not coming in there trying to garnish those reps in meaningful moments throughout the course of the season. People already know who you are, trust who you are, and then it carries over on the football season. We saw that this year, and this quick start is just acumen all around for the game and how he was playing. It was a phenomenal story, continues to be, and I think the biggest story going in this weekend's games.
Aside from that, and I'm just curious your thoughts before we look forward to the playoffs here. How did the season go for you? Biggest story, Winnipeg still continuing to be dominant. I mean, what were you looking at?
Yeah, well, just the whole Zach Collaros thing. And, they lose Kenny Lawler. They lose Darvin Adams to Ottawa. They lose those two guys. And then they get Ellington and they get Schoen. And then Ellie goes down and Schoen steps up. And then Dembski comes into his own. I mean, he's been a dynamic player for a long time, but just the way that Winnipeg continues to kind of reload, and Zach Collaros' dominance in the Canadian Football League, no matter who he's playing, and how he was such a important piece to that puzzle last regular season game in 2019, and his record to this point with that football team is just unprecedented. And to go 15-3 is credit to them. I think that's huge because everybody's taking the best shot at you now, and you're reigning champion for 2 years in a row, and so that continues to be a highlight for me. The Rourke story obviously was huge. Watching Chris Jones experiment with things in Edmonton was amazing. I got to cover that team quite a few times this year. Really impressed with some of the young pieces they have in their puzzle. Watching Dave Dickinson go to Jake Mayer on the road on a short week, and to make that move and to be so definitive with it, I think that was a giant storyline this season. And to watch the way that's played out, and it'll be a story to watch this offseason, that's for sure. Saskatchewan's demise, starting off 4-1 and then just shitting the bed from that point forward for a number of reasons. And I think it was internal. I just think that there was there's a lot of seemed like undiscipline, both on and off the football field. And you can't have that, certainly in that environment, in that world, in that fishbowl in Regina and Saskatchewan. You can't have that. And there was just too much of that. That was a storyline for sure. Watching McLeod Bethel Thompson kind of come into his own and lead a football team with total confidence that he doesn't have to look over his shoulder, which is huge. The whole Jeremiah Masoli thing in Ottawa, going down, how it changed the complexion of that football season, and the firing of Lapo, the changing of guard in Montreal with Danny Machocha and firing Kahari Jones and the defense coordinator. So the storylines are just endless, and it's just been a phenomenal season. Oftentimes as a color commentator, I only get like 12 games a year, and Dwayne and Glenn doing a magnificent job with all the others. But when I get an opportunity, I just always tell myself, be prepared and let the game tell the story. Well, this season, the same holds true. The games told the story. The teams told the story. We just have, as commentators, as people on the panel, as ex-athletes and broadcasters now, we just have to analyze and let these guys tell their stories and kind of bring it to fruition. And that's what we were able to do in a tremendous year. And it just gets more exciting. Those storylines are teed up for the next 3 weeks. And everything's starting to funnel, and intensify. And that's what we're all about this time of year.
Well, as an outsider that is kind of joining this, and we were at Grey Cup last year. We did the show with a bunch of media people, and I'll be there again. I'm emailing people right now, figuring that out. It does blow me away, the quality of talent, because everyone talks, CFL game and quality of athlete, but everyone from Kate and you guys on the panel to everyone calling the games to Naylor and Farhan and everyone else. I mean, it just speaks to just the exceptional level of quality right on both sides of the football up there. I think should never be understated.
Yeah, and we do it with, I think we're comparable to what you see down in the States in the coverage. And we're doing it with, a quarter of the necessary tools at our fingertips. And I think that's a testament to the passion, devotion, and expertise and the people that we do have involved, overworked, underpaid, and guys and gals just getting after it. And not only just doing the CFL during the course of our 6 months, doing a lot of other assignments as well, which is not known by a lot of people and viewers out there, that the people behind the scenes are pulled in 1,000 different ways and doing a lot of other different things. And they continue to week put on a tremendous product.
Just to circle back on Saskatchewan, then I want to talk about the matchups this weekend. Like, they had the quote this week. It was like one of the end of the year presser, Dickinson, like, well, like we lost a game and then we lost another game and then we had the COVID game. Like it didn't feel like they really had any excuses there, except like we just continued to lose and continued to lose. Like why did they, as you said, shit the bed like so bad just to what people thought, hey, they're going to host a Grey Cup to, from the outside looking in? It's crazy.
Yeah, I go back to discipline. I go back to locker room. You hope as a coach and coaching staff, GM, that you got the right guys. And I think there was, I think they were lacking in some leadership. Cody is an interesting individual. I think he's a warrior on the football field. I think his arm limits him at times down the field. And it's frustrating for receivers. And then they get frustrated because every time they're trying to go deep and look for an explosion play, they're having to make a contested catch. And I think and so getting back to Cody and his mentality towards the game, the way he plays, I love the way he plays, but I think his arm does limit him. And I think less is more when it comes to media for him. He's just a nightmare, and they should stop already. And I think that is extremely evident most times that he's in front of the camera. It's like, oh man, it's just. I think he hurts himself more than he helps himself when he tries to explain himself. And I think less is more. And I think as a professional athlete, I don't care if you like me or not. I'm going to let my actions speak louder than my words. And I think that's probably best said for Cody moving forward, no matter how it shakes out for him. Just go play. And if it's good enough, great. If not, then, you move on to the next phase of your life. But trying to explain yourself in front of the media for this, that, and the other, and push back about, whether or not you feel you're being fairly treated or not. It's just like irrelevant.
Where does he end up next year?
Yeah, I think there'd be teams looking for quarterbacks. Is Bo going to Saskatchewan? Trevor's, I think, entrenched in Montreal, I think, and Dom Davis looked pretty good, this past weekend. He's certainly had opportunity to shine in the past, so they can always use something there. Toronto, are they happy with Chad Kelly? Are they happy with McLeod Bethel Thompson? Next game for Toronto and their quarterback scenario could say a lot. NBT gets him into the Grey Cup and overcomes, whether it's Hamilton or Montreal. It's a big step for him, feathering his cap of stop squashing any rumors about maybe Cody going in back to Toronto. Hamilton, I think they're in good shape with Schultz and Evans. Dane, it seems like he's got his off-field issues and his mind right moving forward. And when he's on point, he's as good as anybody in the league. Jeremiah, is he going to come back in Ottawa? I liked what I saw in Tyree Davis more so than what I saw in Caleb Evans. And last week covering that football game, Tyree looked extremely fluid, had a little Damon Allen ability to slide in and out of dangerous scenarios. Tyree Adams. I'm sorry, I think I misspoke on his last name. But Tyree Adams is a player that caught my eye. Are they going to need depth in Ottawa? Would he be a fit there? Don't know. They got a coaching situation they got to figure out before they move forward on a quarterback and seeing whether or not Jeremiah is going to be healthy. BC, no. They got VA and Rourke. Edmonton, no. They got Taylor. I call him Amarillo. They got Amarillo, and they got young kid.
Trey Ford.
Trey Ford, who to me I think has shown signs of brilliance and ability to play this game at a high level. He just needs more time. Calgary, they're good. I think Tommy Stevens woke up a lot of people last week. Like, who the hell is that guy? And then I really like the demeanor and what the mayor, Jake Mayer, brings to the table. So I think he looks good. Winnipeg, they're good. Drew Brown's backing up Zach. They're good there. Not a lot of room for Cody right now. So, when you kick it around, you go around the league like that. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And I know he said he's got more football in him. And just doesn't know where he's going to be able to really flog his trade at this point.
Well, but like you said, there is a cloud of, with the media and everything. And I said, we're new still to covering the CFL. And all I hear is, whining or throwing receivers under the bus. It's kind of like here in the States, you kind of have the Baker Mayfield thing where it's like, always seems like you're kind of talking and people maybe aren't the biggest fan. And not that they're the same person, but it does just feel like there's a little bit of funk with Cody where does someone else want to inherit that? I mean, you've seen the last couple of years of that now.
Yeah. Reed, where are y'all based out of?
I'm in Seattle.
Seattle? Okay. Yeah. In today's world where everybody has access to every information or piece of news they need about a player, you're dissected pretty good from top to bottom, and they kind of know what they get coming in. And I don't think Cody's going to surprise anybody. I think what may surprise them is just how tough and how physical a football player he is. He exemplifies that, brings that to the table, no question. He gives you a level of competitiveness that will attract some teams. But I think what you do have to overcome is his ability to make every throw on the field and challenge the defense vertically, just for the sake of challenging them getting off you. Just get off. You can't trick them all the time. You can't double move them all the time. You just got to be able to sometimes just plant your fifth step and let it rip, let your receiver go get it. I just don't see him having that ability. And I think there's a lot of times teams, coordinators that like to have that. I know I would. I'm not looking for a guy that is lacking in that department. I'm looking elsewhere, but I thought it was really difficult for Jason Moss to continue to manage that situation this year and keep everybody happy. Duke Williams going down. Duke having some disciplinary problems too. It's not easy. Shaq Evans was exposed, bring back some explosiveness for that football team, but it was Schaefer Baker that really, I think, stole the thunder there, and Jamal Morrow and Cody's ability to run the football when things broke down. and good defense, and the defense just got wore out over a period of time, I think, and then they just lost hope. And I don't know whether it was Dickey going to Cody or setting him down and going with fine. That kind of broke the back of that want to for that football team, but it seemed like Calgary rolled over them pretty good the last couple of weeks. Over 500 yards rushing in football was embarrassing. But switching gears, the Smash Brothers for Calgary Stampeders, those guys are freaking beasts, man. Dietrich Mills and Kadeem Carey, then you throw in a Peyton Logan. It's like that's going to be amazing. Can James Butler? Can the Butler handle all three of these guys? Can he show? Can he have the type of production that these three guys are capable of putting together? And this coming week's games, it's teeing up. But yeah, a lot going on in Sask, a lot going on in Cody's life, and a lot going on in the world of athletes, where everybody can see everything they want to about you anytime they want.
Speaking of Calgary, they're coming. So BC is my team. I call them America's CFL team just because I'm we're in the States here.
All right, that's all good.
We did not play great last week. Obviously, right? You said, it's like kind of exhibition games and getting everyone. It didn't matter a lot, but
don't take a lot away from that. Guys are trying to rest. They're trying, they're tippy-toeing around, which is often the wrong thing to do. But don't take a lot away from that football game.
Yeah, but dude, my point is, if we've waited here 10 weeks or whatever for Nathan Work to come back, and then we get our asses beat by Calgary at home here at BC Place, I will be at the game. I'm very terrified of that. What do you make of the matchup?
Well, Brent Monson, defense coordinator for Calgary, is underrated. I think he's got a great defense, got him flying around. His linebacking core is really second to none. Defensive backs, they can be aggressive because they pressure the quarterback. It's a good football team. They led the league in sacks with 56 this year, and a lot of people don't know that, but they're pretty good. Sean Lemon at 34 has had a tremendous year. He had 5 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 14 sacks, second in the league. Pretty solid effort. And Ramalade on the other side is coming into the zone. So that defense is incredible. I like them offensively. Right now, their identity is bulldozing people. And why not? Play action with Malik Henry coming back in the lineup is going to be a dangerous weapon. You establish that line, play action, boom, over the top, one-on-one opportunities, let him go get it. He's as fast as anybody in the league. So that's been really scary, is getting Dietrich Mills and Kadeem Carey leading rusher in the league, 10 touchdowns himself, tremendous yards per carry average. And then Peyton Logan is as explosive as they come. And you can utilize him not only in return game, but as a receiver and coming out of the backfield. He's just a dynamite player. So that's a lot to deal with. And then you put in Paredes there and Mark Killam as a special teams coach who's so seasoned and got those guys ready. It seems like week in, week out. They had a return on him 2 weeks ago, and I saw Killam on the sidelines. He was not happy. So I know he'll have his special teams dialed in, and he'll be a coach that'll be up for some of the vacancies that could be coming around this football season and this offseason. But, that's the Calgary perspective. They got everything checked off. BC, I think they've got an underrated defense. I think that they're going to have to be able to pressure Jake, and they're going to have to do it in different ways because I don't think they can just do it just with 4, which is tough sometimes. They have to be patient. They got a bunch of ball hawks on the back end. I really like I love their secondary. Voting for the All-Stars just this past week. A couple of those guys were in there for sure. And Marcus Sales and Peters, Gary Peters. I like those guys. Offensively, sky's the limit for this football team. Can they protect York? Can they get the ball out early? Can they establish a run? They're going to get Burnham back. They got Rhymes. They got a boatload of receivers that and they got to help. I'm not sure if he's healthy, but you've got Lucky Whitehead coming back. Keon Hatcher, I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the league. He's long. He's got a great catch radius. And Katoy is just, a huge target that I think is underutilized as well. So they've got all the weapons they need, and Burnham coming back, that just kind of makes it even ridiculous. It's kind of like just an overwhelming plethora of talent in that huddle. I'd be really excited about stepping in that huddle every time and calling plays and just going, wow, who the hell are they going to let me throw the ball to this time, And you just pick them. They got them. And teams, I'm a big believer in Sean White. He's as good as they are in the league. In fact, he's my top kicker this year. It's over Seth Small. It's over Rene Paredes. It's over Lewis Ward. Some of the big legs, Boris Beatty. My guy, Sean White. And I think he's a little over 92% field goal kicking this year. And just fantastic football season for him. Their teams are as good as anybody. I think Flintoff is as good as anybody in the league with his punts and hang time. And this football team shapes up into guys making plays, and it comes down to the ever boring conversation about turnovers. And, and whoever can create that, take advantage. And typically in games like this, I've been involved in a game now here in Canada for 39 years. And I can tell you that typically in games like this, somebody out of nowhere comes and makes a play. And it's like, whoa, didn't see that coming. But that's where the team aspect comes in. Guy might have been there all season long, and the opportunity just hasn't presented itself. And boom, he's put in a situation, and he produces. And you just love to see that. And typically, those are the teams that end up winning it all. Is people just understanding their role, not doing too much, not changing their colors when the shit hits the fan. And, when it gets hot and heavy, you're not trying to do anything different, but other being who you are, because that's who your teammates are counting on. That's who your coaches are counting on. They put you in those situations for a certain reason, Reed, is because they know you can do the job. And then sometimes you're asked to do a little bit more, and you're put in a situation where, hey, ball's coming your way, step up. And the guy's ready for that moment because he's not trying to do something different. He's been ready. He's locked in, and that's what being a teammate is all about. And that'll happen. That'll happen this weekend's games. Is those guys, some guys, unsung heroes, will step up because they've been given that opportunity, been in that position, and put themselves in that position all season long and worked their tails off, made all kinds of sacrifices, both family on and off the football field, to be there. And it's great to see those things and those moments pay off for those players.
I'm excited. There really will be no excuses for BC if they can't get this going here this weekend. Like you said, with this Hall of Fame receiving class, and they have their work back and everything. I mean, it really is.
Amar Doman's done incredible job, right? An incredible job. And from top to bottom, he's put people in place and let them do their jobs, and he's executed a game plan. And it's really cool to see people getting excited about football on the West Coast. And to see what Seattle and BC did this past weekend, too, I think was great. I think there was a combination of ticket, buy a ticket, get the ticket here. And to me, that is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Can't we all just get along? Can't we just love both leagues? Doesn't have to be one's better than the other. Let's just appreciate them both. Let's appreciate what we have here, our history, the level of play, the difference in the game. And the talent that we have here, and the talent we have, where you're at. It's a different game, and takes different skill sets. And I love them both, but it always seems that people want to choose one or the other. But I really think that Omar Doman has done an unbelievable job of getting over that. And then the team obviously producing on the football field has been fantastic and helps. But it's been a real good synergy out there on the West Coast, and hasn't been lost out here in Toronto, Mecca. We would love to have some of that, some of that passion, some of that support out here for Toronto. It seems like they get lost in the shuffle year in, year out.
I don't want to keep you too long. I really appreciate your time. Just thoughts on the East. We have kind of Montreal, Hamilton. I don't know if it's a symptom of the East just being bad or Hamilton stepping in here right when it needed to be, but thoughts on that matchup before I let you go. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You got a 8-10 team and a 9-9 team, and we're like, oh boy, one's 5-6 of the last 6 games, and one is 5-7 of the last 7 games. Montreal will be rested. They got to rest everybody this past week, or for the most part. Hamilton rested their entire defensive line. I covered that game against Ottawa, and they rested Santos Knox defensively. Tim White had some of the big hitters out, some of the offensive linemen. So that's going to bode well for those older vets, playing a long season. People don't realize, 21 weeks, 18 games in 21 weeks. It's not a lot of games. No, it's not, for a reason. That speaks to the violence and the depth and the residual effects that you get from week to week and how they add up. It's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. And these guys need rest. And so both clubs have rested as well as they could. Talking to Orlando Steinhauer, head coach for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, you asked him, he says, I just wished it was a bye week for us, and because that could have rested everybody. Because you got salary cap implications about bringing people off rosters and things, not setting guys. And now all of a sudden you're ballooning your salary cap and spending money that you don't have, and becomes very difficult to get those guys to rest. I believe both clubs are coming in fairly well rested. I like what I see with the 1-2 punch with Hamilton right now at quarterback with Dane Evans and Matthew Schiltz. I saw Schiltz last week throw some footballs with confidence and timing and that I hadn't seen before. Reed, it was like, okay, that ball came out with a lot of confidence there, and that only happens when you have confidence and when you're seeing the field and you're throwing a guy open. And I saw him play faster and freer last week, which is a great sign for Hamilton. I think Dane is being pushed by Schiltz as well right now, which is only good for that football team. I think they're a good 1-2 punch. Tim White, I really like. Obviously, he's huge offensively. He's one of the best receivers in the league. He's got my all-star vote. And then you got Godwin and a kid by the name of Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson from Buffalo. He's really caught my eye. This kid Godwin from Georgia's really caught my eye. So you start sprinkling them in with Stephen Dunbar from Houston, in his second year. You've got some weapons offensively now for Hamilton. It's like, whoa. Then you got West Downhills. It's like West Hills is a beast, and we call him West Downhills because he's coming down at you. And then you throw in a little STE, Sean Thomas Arlington, with a little scat back, a little ability for pop on the edge and even inside the tackles. This football team's coming together. Defensive backfield is as good as they get. Mark Washington's got them going in the right spot. Santos Knox is rested. They'll have Dylan Wynn back. They'll have Diallo in the middle. They'll have Hauser back. They're going to be good defensively. Montreal's funny to me. You stand back and you got Walter Fletcher for the run game. That's as good as it gets. Great 1-2 punch, offensive line. They missed Jameson, but they've been able to fill the center position quite nicely, seamlessly. Gino Lewis has been carrying that football team. Jake Winicky, he hasn't been able to find the end zone. We used to call him Touchdown Jake. Not anymore. Sometimes every now and then, Touchdown Jake. And it's one of those things where, but he's clutch, right? Coming over the middle, making contested catches. He's a lanky guy. He'll lull you to sleep if you're not on point. But these football teams, Reed, and they're bringing everything to the table they need to be bringing, and they've rounded out into form, both coming in hot, and so it's going to be a great contest.
I'm excited. I think it's good. We'll see what happens here with Winnipeg and the East and West, and I don't know, if it's all for naught here, but I think it'll be exciting nonetheless. At least the semifinal. We at least still have hope right now. I'm a Washington Commanders fan, so I have to take the little bits of hope I can. So
yeah,
but
didn't they win this weekend?
They did.
Yeah,
they
did. Yeah.
We won.
So did my Cowboys. Yeah.
We won barely against a backup quarterback after they benched Matt Ryan in Indianapolis.
Take him where you can get him. Yeah, take him where you can get him. Speaking of quarterbacks, didn't even touch on Trevor Harris. He's phenomenal in these scenarios, right? he can put up some crazy numbers. Trevor Harris can in these football games. And if you don't get to him, if you don't pressure him, he will slice and dice you up, and he'll have over 400 yards throwing in a heartbeat. He may go 22 in a row like he did in 2019. In one time too, he threw 6 touchdown passes in a finals game. So the guy steps up in big moments. He's capable of doing that. So all the right pieces are in place for a good game out east.
Awesome. Well, Matt, I really appreciate your time. Persistence paid off. We got you on, and good luck this weekend and everything else. And, we'll be up in Regina, so we'll be part of hanging out. Hopefully we'll see you up there. So
yeah, absolutely, Reed. Hey, if you see me, say hello, okay, brother?
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
You bet, man. Best of luck to you.
Special thanks to all of our guests today. Mike Mitchell, extended time. It's really late for Mike doing this. It's late for me. Pacific Coast time. It's certainly late for Mike, East Coast time. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate Alan hopping on as well, kind of in the middle of the workday to talk to this crazy XFL podcaster about Vegas sports stuff. And then Matt Dunigan, true legend of the game. Really appreciate that. I could talk with Matt for hours. I'm sure you guys could listen to Matt talk about the Canadian Football League for hours. Really appreciate that. Also, just found out today we are fully accredited for all of the events for the Grey Cup coming up in November. I'll be announcing, I've already been scheduling guests and locations and all that for our live show, but I didn't want to announce anything until we were officially accredited and all that stuff. But we are locked in. CFL Grey Cup 109. Shout out to Amar Doman and the BC Lions for acquiring the rights to Grey Cup 111. So it'll go back to Hamilton next year, and then back to BC. That will be a big one. Road trip up from Casa to Markcast there. We'll do that. But really excited for that. I have a really good show. I have a ton of guests already lined up in a great location for the Grey Cup. If you guys are in the area, please stop by. But otherwise, obviously that'll be our episode that week. But lots of big, exciting things that now I can officially talk about since we are accredited again. Thank you so much to the CFL for allowing this crazy American podcaster to come up and talk about your game. Like and subscribe. Get the Brian Scott football. And now I'm going to pull up. We have our big giveaway here. All you had to do, I only had, and I don't think this is, I have 4. I don't think this is the besmirchment of no one cares about the USFL. I just think people are lazy. 4 people entered in to win the Case Cookis USFL jersey. All you had to do was go to themarkcast.com/review, leave a review for the podcast. You would have gotten this Case Cookis jersey, brand new, courtesy of Royal Retros, custom, size large, all this stuff. The winner of the jersey, longtime supporter of the show, really appreciate it. Robert, you are getting the Case Cookis jersey. So Robert, please send me either a DM on Twitter or an email, themarkcastpodcast@gmail.com. You are going to get the Case Cookis jersey. And now we are going to try this again because we had a winner. Now keep in mind, we had a winner for this Doug Flutie. Oh, that's a string there we'll get rid of. But we had a winner already for the Doug Flutie jersey. The winner did not claim their prize. That's why you got to listen to the podcast every week. I can't help you. So this is a custom Doug Flutie BC Lions jersey, courtesy of Royal Retros. So again, all you have to do to win this, go to themarkcast.com/review. You can go to the website. There's a review link on there, but themarkcast.com/review. Leave us a review. Hopefully it's 5 stars. Send me a screenshot. You can email it or DM me. We got a lot of CFL fans. When I posted this on Twitter, we had a ton of people say, I want the Doug Flutie one. It's got the nice stripes on the side. People didn't know if it had that. Custom Doug Flutie. Leave us a review. This bad boy could be yours. Robert, you better claim this. Again, this is an exploding offer. So thank you guys so much again. Like and subscribe. Brian Scott, everything else, you already know at this point. Big show next week. I already have all that lined up. We will have draft coverage in some form or fashion, whether I am in Vegas, could be here. We're flying out to Regina the next day after day 1 of the draft. So might be easier for me to do it here. We will see, but I promise you we'll have good content for that. And then we'll have our big Grey Cup show on the 19th. So that week we will not have a Friday normal show. We will have the Saturday the 19th. Lots of details to come next week about that. Thank you guys all so much for your love and support. Take care, stay safe, and God bless.